The following is a presentation of the
Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
We are back. My next guest tonight, please welcome a very funny guy, Artie Lang.
We're joined right now by a hilarious comedian. His latest project, the Artie Quitter Podcast. Please give a warm welcome to a good friend of the show. Here's Artie Lang, ladies and gentlemen.
It always makes me laugh when I see Artie Lang on stage, knowing I'm going to outlive him.
A Jack Daniels swilling, pizza-eating, dog-hating, whore-using, cocaine-abusing, hairy-back, big-belly blowhard from New Jersey. The fat little bastard known as Artie Lang!
It's the podcast. Gino Bisconti's here, the regular Filatos behind the dish.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, and look, I have a very special guest here. You know, I'm not gonna say this properly. I'm actually nervous, but George Carlin is, one of the few names you could arguably say is the best comedian who's ever lived. I think people usually say it's between him and Pryor. A lot of comics will say that. If a black comic's around, you have to say Pryor.
No, actually, a lot of black comics tell me my dad.
I know.
Just depends on their style.
While they're robbing her.
I just don't want to seem like. Don't do that. I just don't want to seem racist in front of black comics, so I bring up
I
Pryor.
totally get it. I totally get it.
No, of course, those two guys are just. It's hard to. Here's why Carlin. I give the nod to Carlin. Just the prolific. He's the Woody Allen of stand-up. It's so hard to write 10 good minutes.
Yes.
He wrote like 40 hours.
Yes, he did.
40 hours of stand-up, like 14, 15 HBO specials, and Pryor did a couple and burnt out. So you got to give it to George Carlin, the nod there. So why am I talking about George Carlin? My guest is the daughter of George Carlin, Kelly Carlin, and I've met her a couple of times. At Caroline's, the first time we met, right?
Yeah.
I thought maybe we met in L.A., but... listen, it was really... they named a street after George Carlin, up by where he grew up. He grew up in what they used to call White or Irish Harlem, right? It was
Dad called it both, White
Right.
Harlem and Irish Harlem. And thanks to Kevin Bartini for doing that. He's the guy who got the sign put up.
yeah. So the street that your father kind of grew up on and hung out on in East Harlem.
Yeah.
And what was 121st or something?
West 121st between Broadway and Amsterdam.
Okay. I mean, really a cool part of New York that, up by Washington Heights, it doesn't kind of.
It's very gentrified now.
Yeah.
It used to be very dangerous neighborhood.
Well, no, I say this: there's no neighborhoods in New York to send a tourist as a joke anymore. They're all nice.
I've been staying in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, what's that?
There's nothing hellish about it at all. It's definitely heaven.
It's Hell's Kitchenette now.
It's Hell's Kitchenette. Well done, Artie.
That's what it is.
Well done.
I just thought of that.
Yes, let's write that down.
I'll forget it. But no, yeah, that's a good way to describe it. It's very,
Yeah.
There's gay bars. I mean, listen, we've progressed as a society, as a civilization.
They say.
There's definitely less racism.
Yes.
And there's, gays are getting married, and I think people finally realize you're born gay. People, most rational people realize that, which means if you're born that way, you have to have all the rights of people who are born.
Yes, it helps.
But comedy. And I would, I'm sure maybe, and your father as well as you do might have a take on what he'd think of this. I would love to talk to George Carlin about the state of comedy right now, because he was speaking out about these issues when it really was dangerous.
Yes.
And everybody remembers Lenny Bruce got arrested for profanity in San Francisco.
And talking about the church.
Right, and religion.
That's really why he got arrested.
He's got, again, I repeated this the other day. Your father has my favorite bit on religion, and it's partially the writing and the observation, but of course that great style of his, the delivery of, like, he's talking about things that are bullshit, and then he goes, but when it comes to bullshit, you have to stand in awe of organized religion.
So true.
They have convinced people that there's this invisible man who lives in the sky. And he's got 10 rules that you have to live by. And if you break one of these rules, you go to this place called hell, which is a pit of fire. You'll burn forever, and you'll be tortured, and your skin will melt off, and you'll have pain and undying, worst headaches, and your eyes will bleed. It'll be disgusting, and he will send you there if you break one of these commandments. But he loves you.
And he needs money.
And he needs. See, that's where if he stopped it,
Yeah.
Right. The second greatest comic ever would have stopped at "He loves you."
Yeah.
The first greatest comic goes, and he needs money.
He just can't handle money for some reason.
I mean,
it's so brilliant.
There's this guy Joel Osteen that literally sells out the Grand Canyon wherever he goes.
Yes.
And I watch it. I watch it every day because it's such a train wreck. He's got fairy tales he tells these people. He just inserts some short story, some fruity fairy tale guy wrote, and he makes it believe like it's his friend.
Yeah.
I got a friend who works in an office, and he was down. He was depressed. And he saw a butterfly. And these people are riveted.
Yeah.
And there's 80,000 of them. I would kill. Two things I would kill if I could watch a TV show with two people in time. I would love to watch a Joel Osteen service with George Carlin.
Yes.
And I would ask God to do this. And I would love to watch an episode of Mob Wives with Carlo Gambino.
Oh.
Those are my two dreams.
That's fantastic.
He would go nuts.
I love that.
So, and I apologize, Kelly, for being I'm a comedian who, I'm sure this happens all the time with idiot comics like myself.
No, don't call yourself that.
Well, I'll tell you what happened, how we met, more about that night. So after they put the street sign up, a bunch of, there was a big thing at Caroline's, and Rain Pryor, who's Richard Pryor's daughter.
Who's my sister.
Who's you guys are very close. That was so great to see how close you guys were.
Yeah.
Because I love Pryor just as much. I could go on and on as well.
Absolutely.
And Rain is very nice, and I'm happy to say I have a relationship with her too. And a bunch of comedians there. It was me and Colin Quinn and Attell and
Gilbert.
Gilbert was there. And is it awkward for you realizing how we feel? Like, in other words,
No,
your father was so important to me. I'm actually protective of you guys. Like almost like I would.
No. So here's the deal. Before my dad died, I didn't know a single comedian.
Right.
Because my dad didn't hang out we didn't have people come over. That wasn't our house. Our house wasn't people come over.
Well, did he have a best friend comic? Was he close to somebody? No.
He did not have a best friend comic.
That doesn't surprise me.
He was on the road a lot, or
Right.
he was at home writing.
Right.
And used to drive my mother crazy because my mother's like,
And
can
it
we
shows.
Can we go to a movie, please?
Well, look at how much you wrote. It shows.
No, it
Yeah.
did show, and
Yeah.
he was driven, and I don't say this in like a pretentious way, but he's like a Picasso. He's like a man driven by his work.
He's a guy
and he's
that,
a genius.
if you say that, he's a guy that most people don't roll your eyes if you say that. You got to.
Yes,
You're right. Yeah.
And so when my dad died, comedians immediately within 24 hours began calling me and saying, "I'm here for you. I love you. I'm here to take care of you. What can I do for you? Welcome to the family."
By the way, I would have done that. I was in a 5-day bender.
It's fine. It's fine.
No, well, that's amazing.
And so the comedy world has taken me in and befriended me.
Right.
And for me, I mean, it was like at first kind of awkward because I'm not a stand-up. I'm not in the world of comedy, and I have always wanted to be, and I am, but never wanted to be just George Carlin's daughter.
Right.
But
I want to ask you about that too later.
But
on.
hanging
It's so hard.
out with comics, I found that you guys are not only smart and funny, but the kindest fucking people on planet Earth.
We can be,
and it's my pleasure. And I write about this in the book that you are my brothers and sisters because my dad raised you as much as he raised me.
That's why. That's a very eloquent, perfect way to put it. That's very sweet to say, and it gives me the chills. It really does. He did. He raised us.
He did.
Taught us how to be funny in a lot of ways.
And you're his heirs as much as I am. You're on stage being his heir, doing stand up, and I'm doing my thing.
Right.
And and I got the DNA and all that stuff.
Does that mean I got a Corvette? Is there a Corvette?
There would have been.
No, listen.
Daddy gave me cars. He liked giving me cars.
What he gave me was a chance to. I'm a rated R comedian, and what he gave me was a career. People talk about Lenny Bruce, but George Carlin was arrested. I remember Milwaukee and specifically.
So do I.
The guy was. You were there. How old were you at that time? Do you remember?
It was 72. do. I write about the whole story in the book.
Yeah, and a moralist or something was there, and he overheard it.
No. That was different.
Oh, that was on the radio.
That was
Right,
the radio.
right.
That was the professional moralist
That's
Dad
right.
talked about. No, this was we're at Milwaukee Summerfest.
It's an outdoor gig.
Outdoor festival. I describe it in the book, and this is a Rick Overton joke. He gave this to me. It was basically an ocean of beers surrounding an island of sausage.
That's Milwaukee. That's the best way to put it.
That's Summerfest. And so my dad's opening for Arlo Guthrie.
Wow.
And there's tens of thousands of people out there.
Jeez.
And he's recorded Class Clown, but it hasn't come out yet.
Okay.
So people don't know. The 7 Dirty Words bit has never been, heard by thousands of people. And my dad goes out and he's just being himself, and he's trying to do Class Clown material, which is, I have to tell you, kind of storytelling-ish, and it's kind
And
of...
there's religion in it, too. He talks about the
And there's
priest and the
religion.
confession bit. Yeah.
And so we actually have the audio. If you go on our YouTube channel, there's some snippets from this show.
Oh, really?
Of Summerfest. So we're backstage. Mom and I are backstage. And the promoter comes up to my mother and says, so the cops are here? And they don't like the
God.
language.
What? How deep? Are you still on stage at this point?
And they're going to arrest him the minute he gets off stage.
God.
So my mother
Flips.
grabs a glass of water, tries to be casual, and walks out on stage. And my dad's looking at her like, what the fuck are you doing here?
What a great part of this story. I never heard this.
Yeah.
And Mom goes, the cops are here.
She goes on stage.
And you gotta exit stage left.
But did he close with the 7:30? What, you did it already?
This
Yeah.
gets good. So
Okay.
so he now knows the cops are there. He needs to get off, and so people are like, "Hey, what'd she say to you?" And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna have to leave in a little bit, but before I do," and he starts up on the 7 Dirty Words.
Oh, wow. That's it. That's a rebel.
He doesn't back off. No, he starts in on the 7 Dirty Words. Leaves the okay, so then what happens is the microphone, they start turning down the volume on the microphone, and the music starts coming up. Dad knows it's his cue.
Wow.
Gets off stage. So now I'm 9 years old.
Okay, you were 9. All right.
I'm
Wow.
terrified because I know that it's the freaks versus the straights, and Dad, we're on the freak side, and the straights have the guns and the laws, and Nixon's in the White House.
This is 1970.
72.
Right? 72. Sorry, 72 again.
So I'm backstage. I'm 9. We go rushing into the backstage area. We're in this dressing room. Mom's stashing the drugs, like a nice sized baggie of coke in
Still,
the.
I was going to say, your mom was into blow too.
Oh yeah, Mom was
right.
into everything
Okay,
too,
got it.
and stashes the drugs in a bass drum of some bands. The guys in the band loved my dad after that.
That drummer is still in jail right
I
now.
know, let me tell you something. You got the coke, man. You're friends with everybody.
And there's all this chaos, and we're in there and everything, and suddenly there was a bang. And I thought, being 9 years old, and we were just at Kent State like 2 weeks before this. I thought
that's right after
they're
Kent State.
shooting my fucking dad. Like they're going to shoot us. I go into hysterics. I clutch on my mother. Everyone's like, it was a balloon. It's okay. It's a balloon. It's a balloon.
Man.
I don't fucking care. It's a balloon. I'm freaking out now. I know the cops are there. Door opens. Dad walks out, handcuffed, takes him away. And I really, really, really do not know if I will ever see the man again. I mean, you just don't know. You're 9
Imagine
years
this.
old.
Like young people, imagine this. He was cursing on stage.
Cursing on stage. So I ended up staying with the promoter and
That's
his
what he did.
family. Yeah. Stayed with the promoter. My mom went and got a civil rights attorney and bailed him out 2 days later.
Right.
And then we were off to New York City, and my dad did Carnegie Hall and killed. So,
So what happened? They dropped the case? Do you have to go back to trial?
No, the civil rights attorney got it, whatever, it was fine.
I'm telling you, that part of that story I never heard before. Your mom walked down on stage.
That's a great visual too.
Yep.
But that's,
The maternal instinct kicked in. Let me get him a glass of
Well,
water.
that's the other thing. It's like
She was a very smart woman.
The rebel in him was just like, he just wanted to, it was like a rock star thing. The first time I saw him live, I was 17 at the Rich Theater in Elizabeth, New Jersey. But, Bruce Springsteen has a song, Growing Up, and the lyric is, when they said sit down, I stood up, and it's like, he hears that, he's going to get arrested, and he does the dirtiest bit he
That
has.
was my dad. He was kicked out of every single institution he was ever a part of.
And okay, which brings us to the religion part, because he a Catholic school and everything. But again, so what he left me and a lot of other comics who work like me is a career. He
Yes.
he had to go through getting arrested for cursing on stage.
Yeah.
The cops wasted their time.
Yeah. Now the corporations try to shut your mouth.
But there's more subtle ways.
Yeah,
absolutely.
there is, yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why this technology, this
Or the-
podcast, I love it. But
Yep. Or the PC police.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your father's take on all that too. But so you're 9 years old. You're on the road with him. Now, look, you mentioned the cocaine and everything. Were you on the road with him a lot? And when you were
During the summer times.
Was it very visual to you, the cocaine? Did they try to hide it? Or?
No, they weren't snorting lines in front of me.
Right.
But I knew what was going on. I was a very smart kid.
At 9, you did.
I'm an only child.
Right.
Yeah, I've been rolling. I tell, and it's all in the book. But 4 years old, I'm making spice cake with my dad. There's Kelly's spice cake and there's Daddy's spice cake, and Daddy's has got a little extra spice in it.
Extra spicy cake.
That's a different time.
I'm cleaning seeds out of his weed at 7, 8 years old.
There's a difference in times. Like when people now, kids are getting timeouts because they're.
Yeah, there was no helicopter parenting in my household. I don't know what it would be called. I call it laissez-faire parenting. My parents were very cool, my mother was a real alcoholic, a person whose personality changed when she drank, and it was very difficult for me. I was stuck at home with her when my dad was on the road. She got sober when I was 12, but from about age 7 to 12, alcohol and cocaine made our house a very, very difficult place to live.
Well, I'm sure it did. It's got to be chaos.
And it was, and I had to be in charge, and I was the grown-up, and so
on top of show business, which distorts
on top
everything.
Of show business,
not that he was flashy like that, but you're still in L.A. and your father's famous.
I went to elementary school with like Cary Grant's kid. It was like that. It was that kind of L.A.
And you also mentioned, very honest in the book, you mentioned your mom caught hepatitis C and she knew exactly when it happened.
Yeah.
Like she shared a needle.
One time
she did IV drugs.
Yeah, one time she did IV drugs.
With a neighbor, and she knew it was, like, she remembered that's when I got hepatitis C.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, a little bit about I was mentioning to Kelly before, I was such a big fan, and George Carlin was very good at keeping his family private as much as he could. I didn't know much about it.
He wasn't Pryor. He was not Richard Pryor.
No, I read. But by the way, I love that you quoted the joke at Carnegie Hall about he leads the comedian heart attack.
Isn't that a great?
I've always loved that joke.
Bit.
Do you know that joke?
So
No. Richard Pryor had a heart attack, and
keep talking.
I could probably recite it.
You probably could. Go for it. Go for it.
He goes, well, I just want to give you guys an update on the famous comedian health competition.
The health update.
I'm currently leading Richard Pryor 2 to 1 in heart attacks. What happened was Richard had a heart attack, then I had a heart attack, then Richard burned himself up, and I said, "Fuck that! I'm having another heart attack."
Perfectly done, Artie. Perfectly fucking done.
Well, I watched that. I just saw Carnegie Hall a million times.
I love that fucking joke. Such a great fucking joke.
Okay, yeah, it's.
But it was scary being around him when he was having his heart attacks.
Yeah, okay, we'll get into that too. I read about that.
Yeah.
He's at the Dodger game with his manager, and the limo driver saved his life.
He's at the Mets game at
Dodger
Dodger Stadium.
Right.
He's a Mets fan.
That's right, of course.
Dodgers broke his heart when he was a kid when he left.
The one thing I don't like about a Met fan.
I know, it's okay. You'll breathe through it.
It makes sense he's a Met fan. They're underdogs. But
exactly.
Again, this could turn into a quote fest of his jokes, but I love that you quoted that because that stands out in that special.
And it's something I do in my solo show when I talk about the heart attacks. I bring up that clip.
Oh yeah,
and so the audience gets to see him do it. So.
Your father, and it makes sense that he would have the joke that I feel sums up the 60s, like the fight between the establishment and sort of the young people, the hippies. It's the Muhammad Ali joke. And I mean, what's great about the joke is it makes both sides look like hypocrites. It makes both, you could tell the hypocrisy and maybe the bullshit of the side of the young people, and of course the government. Muhammad Ali was heavyweight champ at the time, and he didn't want to go to Vietnam, so he claimed, religious. What do they call it? Religious when you stay out. There's a
conscious.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah,
conscious objector.
Conscious objector because of his religion. He became
right.
Muslim, and he's not allowed to kill people. It's against his religion. Again, George. Again, this is what a comic does. Like a brain like that. He hears that situation. He doesn't want to go to war. Because this is a heavyweight boxer, doesn't want to go to war because his religion claims he can't kill anybody. He's a boxer. Okay, there's the situation. Most people without that brain, they're just okay, fine. They don't. But a guy like George Carlin lasers in on the contradiction. And so he goes. Muhammad Ali said to the government, I don't want to kill people.
I'll beat him up.
I just want to beat them up, because what the government said was, if you don't go to war, we're going to take away your boxing license. You
Right.
can't box. So the joke
He
is,
says, I'll beat people up, but I don't want to kill them.
yeah. So the joke is, Muhammad Ali said to the government, I'll beat people up, but I don't want to kill them. But I want to beat them up. And the government said, listen, if you don't kill them, we're not going to let you beat them up. It's just like, that's so. It's like
It's brilliant.
The best jokes are that simple.
And what's
Yeah.
what's amazing about that, it's funny you're picking these, because this is also a clip I do in my solo show. I play that clip because it shows that moment where, first of all, that was the last Ed Sullivan my dad ever did, and it was 2 weeks before the last Ed Sullivan ever, and it really shows that there was 1970. He had just grown his hair out and his beard. He was just becoming
So throughout the
new
60s, he had the short
the
hairs. Wacky weatherman thing.
Yeah, and doing Indian Sergeant and all that stuff. Yeah. And this was just, it just shows his ease with being subversive,
right,
without having to clobber you over the head with it. You know, it was just such a
subtle,
poetic and beautiful, that playing with the words that way, and
the way
just impressive
his way of interpreting the English language, and making it funny. There's been no one better at that ever. Again, that Muhammad Ali joke, it sounds so simple, but that's what's brilliant about it.
It's one of those things where you go, "Fuck, man!"
Why did I think of that?
Right.
A lot of comics have jokes that I go, "Wow, I wish I thought of that."
Yeah.
But again, the other thing about it is, it's really it sums up the whole fucking thing.
It does.
It's
in one beautiful sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
Clearly Muhammad Ali's being dishonest, and the government's being being oppressive.
Yeah.
And it's just I always sometimes you take stuff too seriously, but that was definitely something that was impressive.
Yeah.
When you say he wrote a lot, was he almost reclusive with that? Once he taped an hour,
he always had another. He was always writing things down.
Right.
He talked a lot about his process, but there was pads everywhere on every counter in every house. He had in every room, recorder for in the car, and he was always writing things down. His very first boss told him to write everything down, and so he'd listen, and that was at age 17.
Wow.
And then he would just keep these files, and I have quite a few of these Ziploc baggies filled with these little pieces of paper with his handwritten notes on it with these different topics.
That's like finding history.
It is.
That's
It's pretty
comedic gold.
It's pretty amazing to have access to it, and
it's
it's
like the holy grail.
But he was a craftsman,
right? Absolutely.
He's like Seinfeld. Seinfeld sits down 2 or 3 hours a day and did from day one. Yeah. All of his comic friends used to give him shit for it. You're going to go write now? And he'd go and sit and write for 2 hours a day. My dad was that way. If he was home, he was working on material, working it out. He was coalescing stuff or trying to build it into what he was going to do on stage. And then, in his last 10 years, if you saw him around the country, you'd see he'd bring a pad on stage and say, I'm working on a new bit for the next stage.
I saw him at the Beacon Theater.
I'm working on a new bit for the HBO thing. And he never, ever let me see it in that form. Like, he would work out at the Comedy Magic Club in L.A. or the Comedy Store.
In Hermosa Beach.
I never knew about that because he never invited me. And at first I was really insulted, Dad, I can't come hang out with you at the Comedy Club. And it's because he wanted me to see it in this perfected form for the HBO show.
Even in front of you, he was...
particularly in front of me.
Right.
He wanted me to see the final thing because I think he loved, as much as anything, there was some things that he did in his act that he knew that I either had an opposite opinion of or had a different take on, and it was kind of like a fun unspoken conversation we would have with each other. I was really into cycling, really into watching cycling, really into Lance Armstrong. And my husband grew up playing golf, and so my dad gave us a personal dispensation for golf because we told him we played on public courses. Dad, real working class people play on public courses. So I'll never forget, I'm sitting out, I think it was Universal Amphitheater. He came out and he said, fuck Lance Armstrong. And while you're at it, fuck Tiger Woods too.
Well, he got a lot of great anti-golf bits.
Yeah, but and the whole point of that was I'm tired of the people telling me who my heroes should be. That was his main point. But I'm sitting there and of course, I'm laughing inside because I'm going, he knows exactly how I feel about these people. He's so cute.
He had a lot of real controversial. I mean, listen, times change. I saw him tape his live HBO special at the Paramount Theater in the Garden in New York in 1992.
Oh, you saw Jammin'.
Yeah,
you
I saw that.
saw him tape Jammin'. I did not come to that one.
I was in the 20th row. Me and my buddy
Holy
Mike Deej.
shit, Artie.
We were there, and I was just getting into comedy.
Groundbreaking.
And listen, he did a thing about the environment.
The
like
planet
the whole,
is fine.
Yeah, right.
And I write about it in the book because people interpret it wrong.
It was a very, this whole thing was just beginning of the environment and, the climate change and whatever. And, again, a George Carlin observation that it takes balls. And it's great because it also surprises you. You'd think maybe he'd go the other way because you think he's left-wing political. And
he is. He's very, very progressive.
Right. But his point was, the world's been through,
floods
and
volcanoes and meteors.
Ice age.
And
meteors hit this place. And we think a couple of plastic bags.
Yeah. It was about
the pretentiousness of us.
It was about the pretentiousness of the yuppies, first of all, who fucking sold out their generation.
Right. We think we're important enough to ruin the earth.
Right. Yeah. And that it's not about acknowledging that the earth will shake us off like a bad set of fleas, like he ultimately says.
Right.
Yeah.
And if it's a real wake-up call because, and really what he's saying is, and by the way, my father recycled, just so everyone knows, because he even says in the bit, a couple of aluminum cans and some plastic bags, and he really was talking about recycling. But he was talking about the arrogance of yuppies and that they weren't really interested in saving the planet.
Right.
They're interested in saving the planet so that they could have more shit.
No, exactly.
And that's what the fucking bit is about.
That's somebody getting...
It's about greed.
Yeah. That's why I would always, sometimes when I would I did a lot of, over the years, jokes about race, and I would do it not to get black people riled up. I would do it to get the pretentious people who thought they could tell black people what they should be
feeling,
right,
how they should be offended.
I wanted to make them mad.
Yes.
I so wanted to make them mad.
Right.
That's why I did it. I went overboard because I want to piss you off because the racism you have is worse than mine. It's like no, they don't seem offended. They're laughing. Well, they don't know. They're not smart. I'll tell them.
Right.
They don't realize why they should be offended.
That's the PC police. They're in your head. Like if I do a joke about race or religion and you look for a black person to make sure he's laughing, you're wasting the moment.
Yes.
No, but it's worse. It's worse than that.
It's
These
you
people
keeping yourself captive.
No, but it's worse than that because these people they get active. They insert themselves into your life and they go to these people. Why are you laughing at this? I'll tell you. Should be offended about this. I'll tell you why.
Yes.
And I want to make
this is why you're upset.
Well,
yes.
yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
It's that. That people can't speak for themselves or fight for themselves. And
that's so condescending and patronizing. And
and I just want to for 1 second just get back to the planet.
Go
thing
ahead.
Because these fucking climate change deniers put up that fucking video and act like he didn't believe that the fucking industry has fucking killed this planet.
First of all, it's 1992.
And my father fucking hated big business.
Right.
Hated what people are doing, raping this fucking planet. And, just simmer down, you climate deniers. Just fucking shut the fuck up.
They're not smart enough to realize what you just said, what it was really about, what he was saying.
They take it. Yeah, it just drives me crazy. So I actually ended up writing about it in the book and taking a paragraph to explain it to people because it pisses me off so much these days.
Yeah, I mean, he was very he was subversive in a helpful, peaceful way. Which is a paradox, but
yes,
it was.
It's very well said.
The more you talk about the book, the more it just had to be a labor of love. Like every story you're telling, you're like reminiscing with a grin.
Well, that's the other thing.
That's awesome.
Down to the front cover.
I did do it with huge love. Isn't that a great picture? Didn't they do a great job with the cover?
Listen, the book is again. I can't recommend this book enough, especially even if it hurts me to think that a lot of people who are 24, you might have to explain to them who George Carlin is.
I know, but yet there's young people in Iran and Pakistan and India who email me and say, "I've discovered your father on YouTube."
Right.
Wow.
Well, that's great.
Wow.
I'm sure he'd love that.
It's amazing.
But this picture on the cover is amazing.
Yes.
It's him. This is probably 1965 or 6-ish?
Yeah, probably. Well, no, he's got the long hair.
Because you were born in 63.
It's 70, probably 70, 71. So I'm 7 or 8 there. And it looks like, I'm pretty sure that he just got home from the road. They just woke me up. And for some reason, Dad and I are eating bananas.
Duh.
And you're on his lap. It's a great
But I love it because the picture's kind of poignant, but we've got silly bananas in our hand. And that's really what the book is. The book is funny and very poignant.
And there's a lot of serious stuff in here.
Get some fucking Kleenex when you read it, people.
Listen, you're very honest.
Well, he's a truth teller. He taught me how to tell the truth. And yet, when you notice in the book that because we were a dysfunctional alcoholic family, we did the denial dance, too.
Sure, absolutely.
We were good at that. Oh, let's just sweep that under the rug. Okay. And I became people pleaser girl. Hi, my identity is to make all of you happy.
Was religion in your life at all?
No,
Did he try to even
zero.
fake that, right? Yeah.
No, but very spiritual. Both my mom and dad were very spiritual people, very much seekers, very interested in finding the truth with a big capital T. But no, zero religion. I got baptized for my grandma Mary's sake, who was the Catholic up on Corpus Christi up on the Upper West Side there.
Catholic, probably, right?
That was the one sacrament.
That was it. That was it. I think that was the only time I went to church was there. And, and no, zero church, no, nothing like that. But my dad was always like, you decide, you figure it out. I ended up becoming a practicing Buddhist, trying to teach my dad meditation stuff. He loved that I was pursuing all that stuff. So
no, that is meditation is. I got to look into that because that seems to save some people's lives.
It does. I can teach you.
Yeah. Well, listen. I'll give you real quick. How I discovered him. It's always my cousin Jeff, and it's funny you brought up Class Clown because that was how the first thing I heard. My cousin Jeff's 6 years older than me. He's like my second cousin, but I wanted to be like him. He was my hero.
Yes.
And he taught me. I learned about Bruce Springsteen through him. I liked Springsteen when I was 11 because my cousin Jeff was 17, the coolest guy, and loved him. So I'm in his room, and I'm 12 at this time, and I'm going through his cassettes, and I see George Carlin, Class Clown, and just the title. I go, "What is this? What's Class Clown?" I thought he was a singer or something. He goes, "You never heard of him?" I said, "No." He goes, "Just go home, take the cassette." He knew I loved the Honeymooners. He knew I loved the Odd Couple. He knew I loved to make people laugh.
Yes.
And I was, Class Clown, and he said, "Just go home and listen to that, and then tell me what you think." So I went home and I listened to it. I ruined it. I ruined the cassette.
Bet.
I didn't. I listened to it for probably 3 straight days.
I love it.
And I was looking in this cassette. This guy. By the end, I knew exactly. It's exactly 46 minutes long. And I'm thinking the 730 words and the liberating thing, the religion thing. Because at the time I was about to get confirmed.
Wow.
And there's all these questions I have.
Yes.
And he's talking about the greatest bit. He's talking about how if you're going to go to confession and you have a really bad thing to confess, go to Father, the Spanish priest, because he just gives you like a couple of Hail Marys. He'll give you, it's like a judge will give you a lighter sentence. Like the message in that is like, look, they're just judging you.
Yeah.
One guy,
and they're full of shit.
Right? One guy's a nicer guy.
Yeah.
And
they're telling you to go do this random thing. To get over it.
And he's doing touch myself in an impure manner.
Yeah.
And you're going through all of that and you relate to it. And at 12 years old, I'm guffawing in my room. And comedy for me was the Honeymooners and Abbott and Costello, Slapstick, and The Odd Couple, which was a little more adult at that time.
Yeah, but good.
Then
Great stuff.
So he introduced me to adult comedy, and that was it. I mean, I wanted to be him.
Yeah.
And then Richard Pryor came along, and then Carlin Carnegie.
Yep.
Everybody knew that verbatim. The cat thing, fucking meow.
Oh, fucking meow.
It's just
it is.
We knew it all by heart.
People ask me like, "What's your favorite bit?" And I'm like,
That's
really?
Oh, yeah.
Really? How the fuck are you going to pick? I mean, I have a couple that but I love the goofy stuff. I love the really potent political stuff.
Unbelievable.
And I love like the little silly moments between, when you'd hear him trying to transition from one bit to another and he'd say some little something. I loved those little moments too. Like
he changed. Like if you put a gun to my head, I like the angry George Carlin probably. But the goofy stuff is amazing too.
segmented walking farts. come on.
Right.
There's not a better fucking fart joke bit in history.
Just bits about, that everybody has stolen about dogs, the neighbor's dog who, like, sniffs your balls, and shit like that. And he calls, what's the dog's name? Ball sniffer.
I like when he says, spread your legs, let him get in there a little bit better. It's like, oh my God, Dad.
Yeah, you could go
Holy
from that
shit.
to, like, what we're talking about, like, political stuff.
Yeah,
and,
heavy sledgehammer stuff then, yeah.
So, you have that, and then I saw him live a couple of times, and again, so to see you guys at Caroline's, so you and Rain Pryor, Richard Pryor's daughter, how did, you guys were close at Caroline's, you were friends. That was nice to see.
Yeah, we met right after we didn't know each other before. I knew of her because she was doing her solo show when my dad was still alive. And
well, that was a question before you get into this. Was your father close with Richard Pryor on any level? Like, did they hung out?
Yeah, they never hung out and stuff like that, and they were kind of in two different worlds. But yes, my dad was very close with Richard. He was up in the Greenwich Village with him in the 60s. I mean, they were hanging out with Joan Rivers and
Cosby, Woody Allen,
and Cosby and Mort Saul and all those people. And Dad and Richard.
Think of what the Village was like back then. You could see that lineup at
the bitter end.
Right?
The bitter end, right?
Oh, yeah.
By the way, in the front of the bitter end is a little tree.
Yeah.
Some of my dad's ashes are in that.
No kidding.
Yeah, I did a little New York tour with Dad's ashes.
That's so cool.
But yeah, Rain and I met officially. Finally, we met on Facebook first, and I was like, "Do you want to be my friend?" She's like, "Yes." And then Paul Provenza had a show called The Green Room with Paul Provenza.
I know you.
And the very first episode, I went and Rain was on one of the first tapings, and I went in my dad's.
You were on together?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I was in the audience. Rain was on the actual sofa because she started doing stand up.
Right.
And I went in my dad's stuff, my dad's jewelry, and I found a little jester pin, and I brought it to Paul. And so part of the Green Room episode is me giving the pin to Paul, or Paul showing it to everybody.
Yeah, Provenza, I know.
Provenza's, he's the director of my show. He's amazing.
Yeah.
So Rain and I met that day, and then for me it was the first time, because I didn't know any comics. I didn't know any comics kids. Growing up, I knew Carbonet's daughter, but it's instant, unspoken. I totally understand who you are and what you've been through and what your life is like.
The difference is it's
and being
weird.
an only child, that's amazing because I've never had a sibling. So
yeah, when Pryor, Rain, that's a whole other aspect of her life, like 8 kids and
whole nother thing. Yeah.
Well, both your father and him had drug issues, but Pryor ultimately couldn't keep it together family wise. It sounds like your family was important to him.
Very loyal. My dad was one of the loyalest people. Not that Richard wasn't a loyal human. I'm not saying that, but my dad was very loyal.
He was an addict, and it's hard.
And very different upbringings. I mean, let's talk. We could talk about that.
Pryor grew up in a whorehouse, right?
Yeah, he literally grew up in a whorehouse.
People don't know that.
My dad and mom stayed together. They made it. They made it through. I mean, that's part of the reason I wanted to write this book. It's not only is it my survivor story, because I went through hell with my parents and then went through my own hell with shoving shit up my nose.
Yeah, I want to get into one of the marriages.
But my parents were very close, and they made it. They didn't divorce. A lot of.
How long were they actually married for?
Until my mother died in '97, which was 36 years.
In Hollywood, that's impressive.
That is fucking impressive.
And he's on the road, and there's drug issues, and blah, blah, blah.
there were for sure affairs and stuff like that. I mean, let's not be stupid. I wasn't stupid, and they argued about that a lot. But he came home, and they were soulmates, and they really loved each other.
That's hard, man. I give your mother a lot of credit.
I give her a lot of credit, and that's part of it too. Is like I got to tell my mother's story in this book, and her story never got told, and I got to give my mother a voice.
Yeah, she comes off and you could tell your affection for her.
Yeah, she was an incredible, beautiful human being.
The Milwaukee story alone.
Yeah, right.
I love that.
Yeah,
story.
I mean that alone.
She go out there and handle this.
The balls she had.
Yeah,
man.
Going out on stage with his fans there. Well, so you said you had your issues too with drugs and stuff. Mostly cocaine.
Yes, in high school I started doing weed and coke and Quaaludes and all that stuff. But then at 18 I met a man who was 11 years older than me, was a car mechanic, was a cocaine dealer, and was on probation for a federal weapons charge.
A Renaissance man, if you would.
Designing and manufacturing silencers for AR-15s. He was married and had a toddler. Yes.
So that you're attracted to him.
He spoon-fed me cocaine, worshipped every aspect of my body, and within 3 months was living with me in my bedroom in my parents' house.
Wow. Now, does your father bring that up? What goes on there? Is your father just...
So basically, my dad got introduced to Andrew because Andrew came out to the kitchen in his underwear and was like looking through the refrigerator for something. And my dad's like, "Hi, who are you?"
Was Andrew a fan?
Hey, oh yeah, of course.
So,
of
right,
course.
okay.
Yeah.
So there's that awkward part of it, too.
Awkward.
Okay, well, let me explain. So there's a story in this book that, as an addict, I really related to, and what you go through. So this guy, Andrew, you married him
Yes,
in 1985.
I did.
Right.
Guilty.
You guys are, living in the fast lane and the cocaine and stuff, and you make a conscious decision you're going to quit.
Yes.
And you tell him that let's quit drugs and get married.
Right, we're going to get married. Let's quit drugs. I'm 22 at this point. Let's do it right. I'm 23. Right. Let's start over.
And you said, listen, let's make our wedding day the day we stop drugs.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So he commits to that and everything.
Yes.
And again,
on board.
This is when you're an addict living with an addict, it's hard. So you make that decision and you're really sticking by it. You get married, and is it your honeymoon night?
So we got technically married.
This is unbelievable.
Got technically married in Vegas the month before because we didn't want to get married under French law. We went to St. Martin.
Right.
So we go down to St. Martin with my mom and dad and my best friend, and we're going to go down there. We're going to have this beautiful ceremony in this place called La Samana, and it's we're already officially married, but we're going to have this beautiful ceremony. We wrote the things and everything.
So the legal wedding happened. And
legal wedding. So we're going to. I've got my wedding dress, the whole thing, and we get there. And it's a fucking 20-hour day to get from LA to Dallas and blah 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 blah, St. Martin, all the way down there.
Can I tell you, when I was reading it, I felt tired from traveling.
Yes.
When I was reading this part,
endless.
Wait, you're in Vegas? What's happening? Where are you at?
And then we get there, and it's late, and we're finally there, and I'm unpacking the suitcase, and in my suitcase,
oh my God,
is a fucking 8-ball.
Okay, listen. He put on top of bringing it and breaking the vow. He put it in your suitcase.
International drug laws.
I mean, that's trafficking.
Yes.
At that point, an 8-ball is possession with intent, probably.
Yeah, especially if you're going across international lines.
It's trafficking.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I've that phrase, seeing red. I've done it. I get it.
But here's an addict's denial of okay, she'll probably still want to do it because he says when you bring it up, he goes, "I thought we'd celebrate."
Yes. And the thing is, because in the past,
that's obnoxious.
It had fucking worked. You fucking see it, or he's calling the guy, and you run into the bathroom because you fucking have to take a shit suddenly.
Yeah.
Because we all know that world. So
I've heard.
Whatever.
That's right. Heroin constipation.
Whatever. Yeah, you're two opposites. But yeah, and that was it. I knew I was married to the man. I was legally married, and I knew right then and there I'd made the biggest fucking mistake of my life.
You were half a day
in. This guy's never fucking changing.
Imagine going through that. But so another amazing thing about that story, as an addict, I had to say, wow, I was not on your side for a brief second.
I
understand. Flushed it down the toilet.
I did.
And so what, did he just let you do that? Or he just
he did. Because he fucking went and scored.
He was so
he probably
wrong.
Scored somewhere else on the island.
But he went through the trouble of...
He always thought he could charm me, and for many years he
did.
Yeah.
How obnoxious is that?
Oh, man.
But as an asshole addict, I almost wanted to high-five him through the book. Like, wow, that is fucked up. That is another level.
Trust me, I know. I've been there.
But listen, now, so that shows a lot of strength. Was any part of you, were you so committed? Was any part of you
I
wanted
was done at that
say,
point.
like, put him down through some lines? Or,
no, because I'd already done that a few times. I'd already quit and gone back and quit and gone back and quit and gone back. And I was tired. Yeah. I was done.
You get worn out.
And you do. I got worn out, and I at a certain age, I'd already been through with my parents. And
you're only 22 at this point.
Only 22.
Yeah, that's what happens in L.A.
And this guy was a handful, and his kid was a handful.
It sounds like it.
And I was once again the only fucking adult in the house, and I was done, and I really wanted to get on with my life, and yet people pleaser in me, I was like, oh well, okay, we'll just keep going on. And then once I was married, it was like, all right, well, I guess I married the guy. I can't really go to my parents and say I really fucked up. Although they were sitting there, I'm sure, with their fingers crossed behind their back going, please tell us you fucked up.
When is she going to call saying she fucked up?
Please tell us that. And I'm thinking, I can't tell them that.
No. So at this point, too, your main career goal was you wanted acting. You were.
I did. I wanted to be a comedic actress and had no skills and no. I mean,
Carol Burnett type stuff.
Carol Burnett. Arnett, Lily Tomlin were my heroes, absolutely. But I had no sense of myself. I had zero identity. I mean, I just didn't even know who the fuck I was, let alone that I was capable of something. And, I talk about in the book about my dad doing the sitcom pilot, Apartment 2C.
Apartment 2C was HBO?
HBO, yeah. And I got to play this punk rock Girl Scout, and I play the clip in my solo show. And one of my friends now is Lorraine Newman, and she watched the clip, and she said to me, you could have probably auditioned for SNL. You were good enough. And I was like, wow, I had no fucking sense of myself.
I'll stop you there to give you a compliment. The book is written very well because the way you describe this moment when you have this dream of acting, you're about to do a scene with your father. So on top of the nerves of, you're going to do a scene in front of a live audience, HBO, it's with your dad who, you want his approval.
Totally.
And the way you describe how you felt before the door opened is written, it's written really well. It's funny, but you really feel tense and you nailed it, and your father gave you an affirmation, right?
Dad walked up to me and said, congratulations, kiddo, you just got your first professional laugh.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be amazing on so many levels.
With tears in his eyes, and it was that moment of like, wow, I did it. And then, as Artie knows, I say, and yet I felt like the biggest fucking fake in the world because it was like a scene with George Carlin that I hadn't even auditioned for. It had been handed to me.
Okay, so that's the thing. People always talk about, like, kids. I come from a blue collar family, not a lot of money, and had a struggle and all this stuff financially, blah blah blah. This is a different experience than you, but. So a lot of the people from my neighborhood, if you meet a rich person, when I moved out to LA, I met some rich kids, and I had a natural, anger towards them.
Yes.
But what I learned in life was the way you relate to somebody is you find out their struggle. Everybody has a struggle in life.
And it's
Everybody.
not their fault they grew up rich.
Of course, and you relate. So you're dealing with the fact that an identity. You're George Carlin's kid, and you technically, it's not stand-up, but you want to get involved.
Yes.
And you're intelligent enough, and you have a big enough heart and brain to where you're not vapid, and you realize, okay, I feel you have guilt over the fact that even though I kicked ass, I didn't have to audition. And that's your struggle, and that's harder than what I went through. I really think so. My old man hung antennas. I didn't have to deal with an identity,
and thank you for that, Artie. I really appreciate that because it was, in writing this book, I really wanted to let people know that, I grew up with a very generous dad, and we made, he made money, and we had a privileged life. Absolutely,
and not just a guy in show business, an icon,
right? And yet, there is. Everyone does have their own personal struggle, and I didn't want to be one of those people that everything was handed to. I wanted to earn my keep in some way, especially when it comes to my craft. And didn't trust myself or my instincts enough to know that I could have gone for it at that time, and instead it scared me, and I started having panic attacks.
Wow! Think about that.
Welcome to the business.
That anxiety, that complex, if you will, prevented you from moving forward.
Yeah.
And you know what, Kelly? I really, to turn it into a positive, I think that just proves you're a good person. I mean, it proves you're a smart person and a good person. Yeah, because the asshole is like, no, I did it. The Paris Hilton. Or something.
The Kardashian.
And I want to say
right.
that my dad gave me those values. My dad taught me how to have those values and to always remember where we came from,
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of that. My dad was a working class guy, and those are the values I grew up with.
Yeah.
And and that's why it was always confusing for me too, which I write about in the book a little bit. It's like, here we are, we have these very, very grounded working class values, and yet, daddy's giving me a car and all the horses I want, and I've got all the drugs I want, and living this very privileged lifestyle. And so I always felt like an outsider everywhere I was, because if I was with the rich kids and all that stuff, I was looking at it going, ugh, this is so fucking vapid.
Yeah.
But if I stepped away from that and didn't take advantage of those opportunities, then I think, well, am I not taking advantage of opportunities that have been given to me? And it was very confusing for me to find my way, and because I didn't have a sense of myself, I could never be like the dark, brooding artist girl in high school. Like that's who I probably was,
Right.
and probably should have been in the drama department. But I didn't even have a sense of myself enough to even be dark and brooding.
Wow. And that's listen. You know, you're laughing about that now, but at that age, that's very hard to go through that. To be in that vortex of like, what the hell am I doing?
Fucking high school, man. What a fucking nightmare that is, right?
A lot of crazy shit.
Not anyone, and whoever has a good time in high school, it's like that's the peak of their fucking life.
All the people that peaked in high school suck. They do. The wrestling team are all fat fucks right now. I'm telling you, people.
Did you go to Beverly Hills High?
No, I went to Crossroads, which is a private school in LA,
Okay.
which is as bad as Beverly.
Well, let me real quick indulge me here because you're talking about how your father's and the way he was and his affection and blue collar.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you the one time I met George Carlin. In the November of 1999, I had a lot going on. I was on a Norm Macdonald sitcom playing his half brother. I had just done a movie with him, and he asked me to do a sitcom. So I'm on an ABC sitcom as a regular, making great money. And I did a movie with Chris O'Donnell and Renee Zellweger. I was the third lead of this film, called The Bachelor, a big New Line Cinema movie. So I booked Greg Kilborn. It was when he was doing that show before Ferguson.
Yes,
okay?
yes.
The show after Letterman.
Yeah.
And it was done over at the CBS Fairfax. So, again, this is how some people just don't understand show business, especially comedy. I was the second guest, and I said to the booker and my manager, I said, who's the first guest? And as a comedian, you want to hear, some boring asshole actor. You could Orlando Bloom or something.
Right. So you can come out and be the maestro.
Very casually, my manager goes, George Carlin.
Why am I here?
All right, no, Kelly, you have no idea. I said, and I'm on the back of a town car taking me there. I said, Pete, listen, don't try to be funny, man. Leave the jokes for me.
Yeah.
I thought he was kidding.
Yeah.
I thought he was kidding. Just say, God or something.
Right.
I said,
oh, that's so funny.
I said, who am I? Who's first? He goes, it's George Carlin. I said, is there like a teen actor on Nickelodeon who has the same name?
Yes. You mean the other George
with a
Carlin?
K?
Right.
K-A-R?
Yes, it's the Jewish spelling, right?
It's Jorge Carlin.
Yes.
So you're telling me
Oh my God,
I'm following the greatest comedian ever?
Wow, I love it. So
That's like saying.
So my dad opened for you, is what you're saying.
Listen, this is my life.
You're welcome, George. Now let me clean up your mess.
You understand? I abandoned going over my material. I called people. I called Norm. I called Spade. I called friends of mine. I said, Norm, guess who's the first guest? He goes, who? He goes,
Oh my God.
He goes, I go, George Carlin. He goes, hey man, you should not go. And he goes, and I giggle. He goes, no, I'm serious. You should, I don't know, say anything. Say you have, what should I say? He goes, say, I don't know, say you have full-blown AIDS.
You should not go.
You should not. Holy shit.
That's great.
Holy shit.
No, I don't know, make up anything. He goes, say you have full-blown AIDS. Say your legs fell off.
You should.
Can we rebook for next
Right, the
Wednesday?
magnitude of this. I'm like, what? I said, Pete, listen, my manager, I said, did you argue at all? Do you understand the situation?
Oh, my God.
He goes, Michael, you could have said on it, could you say, they'll come back another night, blah, blah, blah. So I go there now. My nervousness goes up a million. And, it's supposed to be a bit, I'm plugging a movie I'm in and a sitcom I'm doing. My mother's watching, everybody's watching. I just picture, like, my friend, my cousin Jeff, who's going to watch, who turned me on to him at 11. Like, she's the first name, bursting into... What? It was almost like a fucking practical joke.
I love it.
The punk thing. So I get there and I'm in the green room and I'm pacing back and forth and the booker is so... I won't even say her name because she's actually someone that should have known this. I'll tell you off air, but she's so unaware of how I'm feeling. I'm pacing. She goes, God, George, I know. She starts doing routines. I could remember that. I said, you're not making this better. Like I was hoping it was, Pauly Shore's brother or something. So he goes out there and, gets standing ovation. we're sitting down, and it's just so eloquent, and he kills, and Kilborn's kissing his ass, and the crowd is laughter into applause, and he doesn't know who's second, and Kilborn says in front of him, coming up, comedian Artie Lang. And he must have, again, I'll never forget this, he was so fucking sweet to me.
Yes.
He must have heard the comedian.
Yes.
And sort of like, in a very humble, as humble as you can do this, not like cocky,
Mm-hmm.
says, well, maybe the kids might be a little nervous, because, we're passing by each other. I'm getting walked by, and he goes, Artie? He goes, you're the comedian? I go, yeah, I missed the call. I just like, and he hugged me. He approached me, and he hugged me. He goes, listen, man, just go out there and fucking kill. He goes, I saw you on Norm's show. I go, yeah. He goes, I fucking love Norm. Tell Norm I said hi. He goes, if Norm likes you, you're fucking funny. I guarantee. So now, Carl, I'm shaking.
Yeah.
I was shaking, Kelly.
Oh my God.
Like a little league guy. I'm talking to Babe Ruth, and he goes, I don't know how this happened, but just go out. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And it was really reassuring. It was so reassuring. And at that point, I said, well, you know what? I thought of the first thing I was going to say, and to maybe get them back, because he really, people were talking about it, the fact that they saw him. And Kilborn introduced me. I sat down, and Kilborn said, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great. It's always great to follow the best comedian ever. And that just, you know what? It brought the house down. And they applauded because they saw my pain. And
you were authentic in the moment.
And let me tell you something. If he didn't stop me and get my head together, I wouldn't have thought that.
Nice.
Like the fact that he was human enough.
But that's who he was.
Oh my God! The fact that he was so human to hear the word comedian.
Yes.
Go out of his way.
Yeah.
To make me. He doesn't have to. He's got a life. He's got a daughter. Blah, blah. He's George Carlin, and he went out of his way to fucking make sure I knew, and he made me think of that line, looking at him.
Beautiful.
And again, that's why seeing you was very.
Artie, that's great.
Yeah, what he meant to me and everything, and I told Norm that, and again, and then the bit went fine.
Yeah, sure,
but
exactly.
And now I'm like happy, going, well, I was on with George Carlin.
Absolutely.
So now I'm in show business. So
Yeah.
That's the only time I met him.
Yeah, and it's really cool when after my dad died, I didn't know this about him, but he'd find someone that he liked. He'd see something maybe on one of the talk shows or something, and then he would hunt this person down. He'd get their home phone number.
Yeah.
And he would call comics and say, "Hey, I saw you on da 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 da." And he did
comics have stories of unknown guys, of him helping them with the material.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and Lewis Black. I mean, Lewis.
Right.
Lewis missed Dad's call. Dad left him a voice thing on the machine.
Wow.
And and Lewis played it for his parents, and they still didn't believe it. But yeah, I heard him he would. My God, he'd be doing like a town somewhere, in the middle of nowhere, and some college kid would come in with the college newspaper and interview my dad, and then say to my dad, "Oh, I'm doing open mics and stuff like that." My dad would get their phone number, and 6 months later call him up and say, "Hey, how's it going? How are the bits? What are you doing? Are you still doing open mics?" I didn't know about this till my dad died.
That's impressive.
And people started telling me this, and it was so beautiful, and it was so funny too, because as a daughter, I always wanted to talk craft with my dad, but I never did.
No.
And so a part of me was I wanted that conversation. I mean, I'm being real here, but at the same time, it was like, that's who my dad was.
Yeah.
He loved this craft. He loved people who were going for it.
Right.
And when he was a kid, he worshipped Danny Kaye, and he stood out in the rain for 5 hours behind a fucking Broadway theater waiting for Danny Kaye.
Wow.
And Danny Kaye came out and walked right by him and all the other kids waiting for an autograph. And my dad said to himself, I'm never going to if I ever get famous, I'm never treating people that way.
Yeah. Well, again, he sort of affected the way I went on to do the Stern Show for 8.5 years, and they have really hardcore fans, and I try to be the way he was to me with guys. I've done the same thing of like going out of the way, and because if he's doing it, how do you justify not doing it?
Right. Yeah.
okay, another significant thing about your father's life, iconic thing he did, a lot of people don't realize this. On October 11th, 1975, I turned 8 years old. It's my 8th birthday. He hosted the first Saturday Night Live.
Yes,
the
he
very
did.
first SNL.
Yeah.
And you were 12 at the time, I guess.
Yeah, around there.
Were you there? Did you go?
No.
Is it something he spoke about? You
No.
You know it was going to be a big
Zero.
deal.
Nothing, not a big deal.
Right.
Dad's going to New York to do this thing for a
Right.
week. No one knew. I mean, who knew? They didn't even know if it was going to last a week or two. I mean,
Because it's basically, he's not in sketches. He does a
he
bit.
refused. He refused to be in.
He don't want to
sketches.
do that.
No, he doesn't like that kind of stuff.
The bit he does, he did the baseball, football bit. You know, he does all that, and
And then he did a little thing on God.
Right,
and,
right.
And the local cardinal called NBC and asked them to pull the plug
Right.
on that man on TV right
Wow.
now. He asked to do an extra monologue because he didn't want to do the sketch.
Yeah, he's
And-
wearing he's got the black suit on and the long
Yeah.
hair, and people, if you read books about SNL, they thought about having a permanent host, not
Yes.
change it.
Or like even like rotating, like my dad and Lily and someone
Robert
else.
Klein, because
Yeah.
that first four people was your father, Robert Klein, Richard Pryor's in that.
Yeah.
The first four,
Yeah.
and I think Rob Reiner. Okay, cut to. And I want to ask you about this maybe. His last book, Last Words. I loved Last Words because he clearly knew the end was coming. And I think he took the opportunity to tell a few people to fuck off in show business. And one of them was Lorne Michaels. Clearly, he did not like Lorne Michaels.
And by the way, he did not publish that while he was alive. We ended up publishing it posthumously.
Did he not want it to publish? Or?
Well, here's the fact. It was done, and it sat on a shelf. So I'm guessing he wanted it to be done when he
okay.
was gone. But
Oh,
yes,
all right.
he did not like Lorne Michaels.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, a lot of people. He's. I've dealt with him, and everybody has a Lorne story.
Yes.
But you don't know that. But the way he talks about it, like he saw him at Aspen, and he goes, "The fucking Lorne Club, Chevy Chase and Steve Martin," and he's pissed off because he's got his minions, and he's talking about these famous. And he's like, and he's right. You could tell he's right. They're like, it sounds so sickening. This little clique. And
Any kind of cliques. He hated groups of any kind.
Another great thing. I've stolen this from him when I'm trying to make a point for a chick or something to sound smart. He goes, "I hate groups of people with an agenda." And this is such a good point about humans and the way they react. He goes, "You ever have a friend like Anthony? I like Anthony, but when he's with Mike, he's kind of an asshole."
He's an asshole. Yeah.
Okay, now picture like 20 of them, and now they have a hat, a slogan.
And next thing you know, they have armbands and they're knocking at your door at 3 a.m. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the way he goes, he takes the jump from like, I don't like him when he's around Michael. Now there's 20 of them. Now they have a hat, a slogan. He makes the face a hat, a slogan. And he's right. Groups of people with an agenda that it's a Ku Klux Klan or whatever.
And the whole Lorne thing. Also, I think a part of my dad also loved being an outsider, but there was a part of him that also longed to belong.
Right. He was a real comedian. A comedian should be an outsider because
Yes,
you get
of
to
course.
comment on it.
You have to be an
but
outsider.
we all want acceptance.
But he did want acceptance too.
Right.
And when he found out before he died that he was getting the Mark Twain Prize, and he was actually very excited about that. Right. So I think there was a small part of him that kind of wished that he kind of sometimes was part of the in club in some ways, and yet he was George Carlin. Like he doesn't need to be a part of the fucking in club.
Well, the best example of it is say something like as awful as like the People's Choice Awards or something. A real comedian doesn't want to be there. Even winning one, you want to make fun of it. You want to be home. And it was great that he was true to that. But when he's talking about Lorne in that book, there's one very revealing, honest moment. He goes, well, he is what he is, but part of me did want to go up to him and talk to him about the first week and apologize to him about all the coke.
Yes.
And he doesn't go into details. Like, oh my God, what the fuck happened?
Remember
all the coke?
Whatever that first book out was about Belushi and about SNL.
Wired.
Yes.
Yeah, 84.
It's in that book.
Yeah, okay.
They talk about my dad in that book. I think my dad and Belushi were hanging out a lot together.
Oh, okay.
A lot of cocaine going on.
To me, it sounded like something crazy happened because here's this guy he clearly doesn't like with a passion
But
for...
my dad knew he probably acted like an asshole that week.
This is the guy he hates. And even the guy he hates, he goes, well, maybe I should apologize about all the coke. It just really hit me.
Based on my past experience with me, I'm guessing
He took responsibility for his actions in the end. He always did.
Now, so the marriage with Andrew, if
thank God.
I don't know detail you want to get there, but how long does that last?
I was with him 11 years, from 18 to 29. Walked away finally. And
when you saw that 8 ball of coke, did you think 11 years was going to happen?
Fuck no.
Yeah.
No, but by 88, I was done. and Andrew did get sober eventually, but didn't act like sober. But I was done, and I went back to UCLA and started getting my life together and figuring out how the hell I was going to get away from him. He was very controlling and very possessive and scared, and he loved guns, which scared the hell out of me.
Coke and guns.
Yeah, fun combo. So and then I left him and graduated UCLA, and I met a new guy who's my husband now, Bob McCall. We've been together for 22 years.
That's great. It's a happy ending.
We have a real solid, amazing, and he helped heal my soul and my heart and helped me learn to have my own feet on the ground and my own voice. And
your father must have loved that.
My father and mom both knew that I was in good hands. And then I had a real partner in life.
Right.
That's really what Bob and I are. And it's a good thing. It's and the book really is, this book, I wrote it because...
I was going to say, that's the obvious question. Why do a book? Why now?
Yeah, so it's been 7 years since my dad died. I've been telling these stories for about 10 years on stage in L.A. and stuff, and doing my solo show the last 4.
So that's the closest you've got to, maybe a stand-up thing you're doing, a solo one-woman show about your life.
But I make you laugh, I make you cry. Right. And
I'd love to see it.
For me, it was really, I survived a traumatic, crazy, chaotic childhood. A lot of people have that experience. I survived an insane first marriage. I survived a kid in high school who was abusive to me. I survived depression, anxiety, agoraphobia, my own addictions, and really, really not knowing how to pursue that thing in my heart that I knew I had to do, which is be a creative being on earth. All these things, and here I am on the other side, and I really do believe in paying it forward in some way. And I really, if any part of my story can illuminate for anyone or give someone else permission to know that they're human, we're all broken, we're all fucked up, we're all just trying to figure it out, including my father, the comedy god. Yeah. He was a human too. He didn't have a perfect marriage, he didn't have a perfect home life, and at times he was lost in his career. We're all human, we're all just trying to figure it out. And my dad was a truth teller, and he didn't talk about the family on stage. Honestly, that's what I do. Yeah. But I'm just here to be real, and I got some great fucking stories to tell too. It's a fucking page turner, this book. I mean, I'm not bragging, but people tell me it's a page turner.
The book is unbelievably great. A lot of times, celebrity offspring will just get a deal, and
it's just depressing.
It's terrible. Talk about getting a ticket outside the spray tanning place.
And that's what's hard about.
That's in your second book, right, Artie?
Yeah.
And that's what's been hard for me, is because it's like I want to tell people, no, don't put me in that category. Give me a chance.
Oh God, I sort of knew it, but after this, you're not even close to that category.
Yeah,
I feel like you grew up next to me. You're like, and I think that says a lot about the parenting, the way you were brought up.
Yeah.
And again, when I met you and Rain Pryor, it was really cool. Like, I immediately got the vibe. Wow, they're cool, smart people. It's nice.
Yeah.
And it's you appreciate
we might have been raised by wolves, but we were raised by very loving and smart wolves.
It's again, it's a lot. Again, that's your struggle. It's And you know what? It's what's great about the book is it's such a happy ending. You did find somebody else. You found peace.
And my dad and I
you're taking the risk of doing creative stuff, and you seem content.
And my dad and I had a beautiful ending, and that's at the very end of the book.
Yeah. It's
my
touching.
dad and I got we got to. I mean, we were close anyway, but we got some real closure on that chaotic past at the end, and it's kind of amazing, a life event that happened for me during that, and I won't give it away, but it's a beautiful moment that I got to have with my dad, and I mean, I've had a really good fucking life. I'm
it's great because not sappy, but you came through that hurricane, and it was a hurricane.
Yeah,
you came through, and you're sitting here, and you're great, and. How often do you do the one-woman show? And where do you do it?
I did a 5-week run at the Falcon in L.A. in February, and now we've got some people who are going to help us maybe put together a tour. I'm hoping we're going to do 10 or 12 cities, some like 300 seaters. Go out with the book, go out with the show next year. We'll see.
Is your goal like an HBO, Showtime kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, my goal is definitely an HBO or Showtime thing. For sure, because I think HBO would be really great since it was my dad's home.
How poignant would that be?
It would be incredible, absolutely. But for sure, and if not, then we'll shoot the DVD and get it on Netflix or something like that. But I want this show to be shot. People who don't get a chance to come out and see me, they'll get a chance. And Paul Provenza directed it, and Paul Provenza is an incredible talent.
Right.
A man who not only his life was changed by my dad. He was 17 when my dad did Carnegie Hall in 1972. That's when he decided I'm going to be a comic. And
brilliant guy. Yeah.
Brilliant guy. Loves comedy. He is a real actor. He's a director. A great stand-up, and it's been an incredible honor to develop this show with him.
I want to ask you one more thing about your dad and religion. A lot of creative intellectuals from that time. They're brought up with, whether it's Jewish or Catholic, whatever. They're brought up with religion. It's they go to the religious schools and it's hammered into them. But they do become atheists. A lot of them. The smart people. That's what they do because they need proof. It doesn't make any sense. So it's a fairy tale, and that I get all that, and I'm sort of that way. But a lot of them struggle with what they desperately want to believe in something. They wish there was something out there. And your father, at the end of one of his specials, talks about, what I think it's like this big, sort of orb, like sphere that just doesn't judge.
The big
and
electron.
It just loves the big
electron.
And do you think, did he ultimately, at the end, do you think he had any sort of reconciling with that, and think maybe there is a higher power and there's something to look forward to, or do you think that happened with him? I'm curious about a guy like
my dad was not an atheist. He didn't like the dogma of anything. He was an agnostic. Obviously, he was an atheist in the sense he did not believe in a man in the sky. Blah 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 blah. He was a seeker. He and I didn't have this particular conversation. We had a lot of conversations about this, but, I think he was, the big electron thing is really great because it is about that thing that, it is what it is. And
the big FU in that, especially the Catholic Church, is it doesn't judge.
It doesn't judge. Right. It doesn't. And it, and yet he, when he took acid in the late 60s, he said, he realized that he was like everything else in the universe, including a shoe in the gutter. And that he knew that, therefore, everything he encountered, he was encountering himself.
Right.
Which means he was always safe. And
wow.
I just love that. And it's a very transcendental Buddhist thought. And I'm a practicing Buddhist, and he and I would have conversations about that stuff. And so... I don't know in his heart of hearts, I don't know what he believed, but I do, here's my thing about the afterlife. Okay, so we're going to die. So if there is an afterlife, yay, great, we'll get to know it.
Right.
And if there isn't, we won't know anything. So who fucking cares?
Yeah, you think, well, it's just going to be, nothingness, darkness.
Either way, we're fine. You're not going to be consciously in the dark. If it's just the way it is the way it is. But no matter what, his electrons carry on. He's now inside of all of us. He's part of the great universe,
right.
And who knows? I mean, it's one of the great mysteries of humanity. I love this.
Again, it's so you did reconcile with the religion thing, and you have a religion, and it's great. I think.
Buddhism isn't a religion; it's a practice. Well, but I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist in that sense. But I absolutely believe that there's some bending intelligence of some sort. I think the evolutionary urge is a very interesting urge. It's a creative urge, and I believe that there's a creative urge in the universe. Is that something conscious like a human being? No, it is what it is, and it's bigger than human.
It would almost have to be creative if you think about it. And people don't bring that up.
It is creative. Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately creative, and so therefore it's the creative act. And so, just be in that. I love being in the mystery of the creative act.
You brought up acid. One quick thing that your father is quoted as saying.
All that,
your father's quoted as saying. I think in an interview with one of the best interviews I saw him do was later with Bob Costas. I think he did a two-parter with him in 1988 or something.
Yeah, it was good.
And they talked about drugs, and he said, cocaine, the white lady, it's good for nothing. He's like, it's good for just terrible drug. And they talked about weed, and he said, I don't want to encourage anybody out there. And you could tell he was kind of hesitant because I think part of him probably bought into the gateway drug thing. But
he did nothing.
No, he didn't. Okay,
no,
that was me speculating.
No,
as a kid,
that's a Reagan thing. He didn't buy into anything Reagan ever said.
Because he hesitated before he said this because it might encourage.
Well, because my mother was getting sober, and I was fucked up for many years.
Yeah, you don't know what he's going through personally,
right,
but he
exactly.
said that, what, I write my act a lot of the times. I used to write my act straight, and then I would smoke pot and rewrite it, and it always got better.
And you know what he called that?
What?
Punch-up time.
So again,
and we're about to make some rolling papers and sell them on GeorgeCarlin.com, and it's called Punch-up time.
That's great.
No, but again, when George Carlin says that, every young comic is like, okay, I got to get a weed dealer. I mean, that was an impressive, honest thing to say, and you wonder how much it got better, because the writing is really impressive.
Yep.
Listen, I took a risk in life, and I left loading trucks at the port to go into show business, and there's a lot of positive things that happened, but arguably the thing that happened, the biggest positive that happened from me leaving loading trucks and taking that risk might be the image I have of your father in that hallway. I'm telling you, it really is. I mean, him doing that for me and hugging me, and it was George fucking Carlin, and I went out and he helped me relax and do good. So I worried about leaving the port because it was secure, and that happened because of that. And that if that was the only fucking thing that happened, it was worth it, And seeing you sitting here makes me feel good, and I thank you so much for this.
Are you kidding?
And the name of the book is a Carlin Home Companion, Growing Up with George. And I can't recommend it enough. It was great. And all the guys, John Stewart, Lewis Black.
Everyone wrote beautiful blurbs on it.
In the back. Listen, we all, if there's a comic who says they're not influenced by him in some way, they're lying. we all look up to him. And Rain, of course, and seeing you guys together is great. And thanks so much for coming in. You made this the last stop,
Thank you guys so much.
And stay in touch. If you want to come on and talk about anything, you're welcome.
That's how you anchor any book tour, the Artie Lang podcast.
Fucking A.
I did some horse shit Tonight Show, but come on.
What are you plug anything? You got the show coming up? Or,
I do want to plug something, actually. Is this on? Are we doing live here today?
It's going to be up in a few hours.
Okay, perfect. So this Friday in Los Angeles at the Grammy Museum, first of all, there's an exhibition of my dad up for 6 months. So when you're in LA.
That's great.
And then when you're in LA, also come to my house and I'll show you the real archives.
Listen, I'll keep in touch.
But this Friday, we're doing a public event, which is kicking off the exhibition of Dad's stuff at the Grammy Museum. It's right by LA Ave. Yes, it's downtown LA. Yes, it's at 7:30 at night. Yes, I'm crazy for asking you to come down.
No, listen.
But I'm doing a reading from my book. There's going to be hopefully a special guest there. I'm going to book sign. We're going to do some Q&A. Come downtown. It'll be fun. Hang out with me.
That sounds like a night that that's the Oscars for me.
Yeah, it's the Oscars for me too.
I appreciate that. It sounds awesome. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so everyone, it's this Friday. So yeah, I'm just going to plug that just because we're trying to sell some tickets to this thing. Because I know it is Friday downtown LA. I get it. I'm a West Side girl. I don't want to fucking drive downtown, and I have to be there.
We'll plug it a couple more times.
Thank
this
you.
week,
I appreciate that. But yeah, just
you're leaving Thursday afternoon for it. It's
yes,
gonna be great.
exactly. And just plugging the book right now. But yeah, other than that, and I have a Sirius XM show, the Kelly Carlin Show, where I sit down and talk to comedians. I'd love for you to come in. Artie.
Yeah, no, listen, I would love to. Sure.
And we'll reverse the microphones, and I'll get to ask all about your life.
You'll hear my shit. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I have a podcast on Kevin Smith's network called Awaking from the American Dream that I haven't been doing lately because I've been so busy. But I got 100 episodes up, and so come on by and hang out with me.
But that's great. You got a lot going on, and it's good. Again, I'll end with this. The best thing I can say about this book is obviously, I definitely feel a connection with you on a lot of levels. But we were brought up very differently. But I related to this book completely because it's written so well. And
thank you.
And, that's the best thing I could say about it. A Carlin Home Companion, Growing Up with George Kelly Carlin. Thanks so much, Cal.
And remember, God bless America.
God bless America. When it comes to bullshit. Back after this.
Hey guys, this is James Flippin of RadioMisfits.com and also one of the behind-the-scenes guys for the Artie Quitter podcast. Right now, you're listening to the free weekly edition of the Artie Quitter Uncensored podcast on the Radio Misfits Network. If you'd like to hear more, visit artiequitter.com and subscribe to the 4-day-a-week podcast. Use coupon code ARTIEFAN, that's ARTIEFAN, and get your first month free.
Oh, man.
Motherfucker!
You idiot. That was not my fault.
Let it record.
Yeah, let it record. Let it record.
Let it record. I really, let it record. This is the opening of the second part of this fucking podcast. Gino Dickface.
Fuck you.
He's all rattly. He's got your pics. He's all rattled.
That is not me. You better
All my notes. My notes that Dan worked hard on.
Both piles of paper Dan printed up for you that you usually...
He just spilled, massive water.
How did I spill it?
What am I... Dude, I just got a brand new iPhone in the fucking mail.
I just dumped water on it.
Oh, that could have been very possible if it wasn't charging.
It wasn't my fault.
You got some out of George Carlin book? Some respect you have. Jesus.
Sorry, Mr. Lange.
Here's the difference. I have George Carlin's book. He has Aziz Ansari's book. I swear to God.
I got a couple of texts or tweets yesterday, direct messages from people who said the other day when you were doing the interview, when Gino was sitting over on the couch, they didn't know that you were on the couch, and they said, "What did you do to Gino? We don't hear him knocking all day."
No, that's audible.
Yes,
I've been better.
Why are you so better? Why are you so fidgety?
I've always been like this. That's a joke me and Levy used to do. We do a road gig, and he'd be like, "Would you sit still?" And then I'd fall asleep, and he would be mad I'm falling asleep. I'm like, I can't sit still if I'm not sleeping. I don't know why.
I don't know why.
I'm sorry. Gino spilled water. Okay, I got to get into something. I have to do this. You know, it's not a big crowd I'm talking to. It's a loyal crowd. I tweeted about this. One of my Twitter followers, a fan, God bless you, he brought this to my attention. There's something called Deaf Digest, okay? It's basically a newsletter on the internet for fucking deaf people. You know, I wish deaf people could hear me right now. I really do. They can't. Because I want them to know I don't... There's a big picture of me, big fucking picture of me, on their front page, Deaf Digest, saying...
It's actually a pretty nice picture, Art.
Does Artie Lang hate the deaf? That's how it starts. And then it goes, he pushed an interpreter off the stage. Insane lie. Insane lie. Like if somebody told you the sun is at night and the moon is during the day, and you know, you go, that's a lie. And they go, no. That's how much of a lie this is. I never touched a deaf interpreter in my life. And it was forcing her to cry, and especially a woman. Are you kidding me? Look, I know I'm a slob. I got this image. I do jokes. Believe me, I was brought up by two very classy, wonderful people. My mother is like a saint, very Catholic. I have a lot of problems, and I've done a lot of obnoxious things to myself mostly. I would have never, ever touch a woman and push her off a fucking stage, especially a deaf interpreter. I hate the deaf. No, I hate you, who's ever doing this. Okay, forcing her to cry, all lies. And then it just says, actor, comedian. Okay, here's the official article, and I'll tell you, if you're a big fan of mine, you know the story. They're referring to something that happened, by the way, in 2003. They're referring to a gig I did at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. with Stuttering John Hostin, back when he was still on Stern, 2003. I'll remember, it was Martin Luther King Day, 2003, so it's January 03. It's a long fucking time ago. This is the gig where it was a Sunday night. I flew up from fucking Boca Raton, where I played a club called Boca Nuts. I did like 6 shows in 2 nights. Flew up to do this gig with John in D.C. Stayed at the Watergate Hotel, whatever. And it was a college. You know, we didn't do a lot of colleges back then. I haven't done a ton. I've done my share. But it's when political correctness was taken over. And John goes on stage. John's oblivious. Like, he didn't even notice there was a woman on stage. John is just, walking around the daze. He does his 10 minutes on Gary's teeth and me being fat. I love John. But I do. But, Nick and I...
He was on the Tonight Show.
Nick was middling, and believe me, the only... it must piss off the comedy gods that on some level I headline on a bill with Nick. The only reason that happened, I was on Stern, and, this was a Stern crowd. Under any other circumstance, I'm not following Nick DiPaolo, but that was the lineup. Nick came out. It was good money for Nick. We always had a fucking blast. John, I, and Nick laughed a lot on the road. A lot. So, we planned on driving right home after the gig. We all wanted to get out of there. It was a 3-hour drive, get our money, be home by 4 o'clock in the morning and sleep Martin Luther King Day and go to work Tuesday and recover. Because it's back when I was still drinking. And in Boca Raton, I had a couple. I'm not going to lie to you. So that's the game plan. So Nick and I are watching John's set, and we notice a blonde woman, cute blonde girl, average height, long blonde hair, blue eyes, a good-looking woman. and she's moving her hands next to John, about 5 feet away from him, and it hits us in about 2 seconds at the same time as she's interpreting for the deaf. And Nick and I go, whoa, maybe there's an important guy who's deaf or a fan who's deaf. It's interesting. And we ask the sorority sister. John booked a sorority booked this. Could you imagine me, Nick DiPaolo, and John for a sorority? The money was good, but why put ourselves through this? Colleges are politically correct anyway. You talk to Rock, talk to Seinfeld, they all came out and said this. It's just how it is, man. It's very uptight. They don't hear context. They hear words. They get offended. It's just Pussyville fucking USA. So on top of that political correctness, they put a deaf woman, a deaf interpreter on stage just in case there's a deaf student there. All right. So that's what the sorority girl tells me and Nick. Nick goes up, stays away for a while, kills as Nick always does. Last few minutes, though, he fucks with her, and he starts, I forget what he said, but Nick was being funny. He was being Nick, and he was busting her chops about, being a deaf girl. Now, I hit a deaf interpreter, and he opened the door of interacting with her. So I said, fuck it, I had to do an hour, and it's a college crowd, and I was worried about some of the more offensive material I had. I said, gotta kill some time if I have to go to her. No malicious intent in my heart at all. It was funny. I wasn't really drinking.
It's not like you said, and then I'll deal with this deaf bitch on the stage.
Yeah, no, but she's not deaf either. She's just an interpreter. No, there was nothing like that. Of course not. Who the fuck? What am I, a monster? This article makes me seem like one. Yes. So I go up there, and again, I drank a lot of Boca Nuts, a Boca Raton, so I really wasn't drinking. That should be in my defense as well, because I assume they thought that. It's a Sunday night, Martin Luther King. So I get up there, and it hit me. What if there's no deaf students here? They didn't even know. She's not needed. If there's no deaf students, it's a little distracting as a comic. So I get up there, and Nick opened the door, and I address her, and as soon as I look at her, it gets a huge laugh. Huge laugh. Because now the sorority girl had the audacity to be pompous and pretentious enough, arrogant enough to tell her, well, because George Washington University, these are sophisticated people. They're not going to laugh at lowbrow stuff, like don't even think about goofing on the deaf interpreter, fart jokes, all this bullshit. They're 19-year-old college students. And those geeks that you're referring to are dying for that kind of material, something real. And so as soon as I look at her, it just erupts in laughter, because I'm a slob interacting with this Mother Teresa type. I say, I don't know if there's any deaf people here. Do you have to stay if there's deaf people here? And she has to sign every word I say, verbatim. And I look out and I go, does anyone could tell me, is there anybody who's deaf here? She signs it, so deaf people would know what I said. Nothing. I ask it again. 5 minutes I wait. Nothing. I said, well, I don't know. It's a little distracting. You don't have to stay here. And she kind of giggled at that like I was joking. I said, And eventually I just said, fuck it. I'll leave her alone. That got laughs, and I went into my act. So about 15 minutes in, I pause, I take a drink of water. It's going all right. They're a great crowd. All the jokes she thought would bomb are killing, because she's dumb. Because she's a dummy. She's a fucking 4.0 grade point average dum-dum. What's she doing now? Nothing. Trying to fucking develop an app. Build a website. Shut the fuck up. She's on the fucking Instagram right now in her parents' basement, waiting for the nanny that brought her up to bring her a vegan meal. Cunt! You did nothing. You're a failure. I'm glad you should be happy I saw you when I saw you, because I saw you at the peak of your existence.
Was she hot?
Me, 34 at the time, very adorable. Me, 34 at the time, had not yet peaked. Ha! My peak lasted 2 days, but I had not yet peaked. I think I peaked at 37. 2 days later, it was over. But it's an odyssey. I got a job. I went out. I chased a dream. I got it. Fuck you, honey. Don't be pissed at me. I didn't take your advice on stage because I'm a professional. And I'm killing. So now, I really want to piss her off, because I'm a rebel. And I turn slowly to the fucking deaf interpreter. Another laugh. I got him in the palm of my fucking hands, these 19-year-olds. As I should. And I go, you have to say everything I say. And she nods yes and signs that. I said, what's the word for pussy? Place goes nuts. 19-year-olds. Now listen, I'm not trying to pass this off as Grammy-winning stuff. It's not going to get me the Kennedy honor with Carlin. I'm trying to kill an hour and get a check and leave. You understand? But the sign for pussy, I swear to God, was a dime. She put her 2 index fingers and her 2 thumbs together like a diamond, like that stupid Jay-Z thing that you morons fucking worship, and puts it by her pussy, down at her crotch. That's the symbol for pussy. So then for the next 30 minutes, after every joke I said, for no reason, I said the word pussy.
Now, is it wrong that I think that's brilliant?
Well, no. I mean, whatever you want to think of it. I would tell the joke, it would get the laugh, and I would just go, pussy. I'd wait for the laugh to stop, and I go, pussy. Pussy. And now, listen, I didn't do this on purpose, but somehow I created the best set I ever had in my life, arguably, which is what makes this fucking story crazier. I would tell the joke, and they would laugh at that, and they would laugh a long time anticipating me saying pussy. And I would fucking play it out. It's called show business. I felt like a fucking prime time Paul Lynde, baby. Fred Travalena in his prime. Killing Yakov Smirnoff at his theater in Branson, Missouri in his prime. In the palm of my fucking hands. I was Roger Waters building the wall. Way out there. You think there's a deaf interpreter next to him? No, they don't allow it. They're rock stars. Mick Jagger doesn't have a deaf chick doing Jumpin' Jack Flash. She'd die. That's right. Pussy. I would tell a joke. 30 seconds, I just do nothing with the mic in my hands. Like Freddie Mercury in an improv pause of Bohemian Rhapsody. And then I just go, pussy. And it was like Springsteen going into Born to Run. I got these future scientists, Google executives, barreled over in laughter at the word pussy. I had done my job. So then I told my last joke, and before I said goodnight, as my form of Rosalita by Bruce, I said the word pussy in succession probably 110 times. I went, pussy, 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 pussy. Now, being a professional, this woman, every single time I said it, took her fingers away from each other and made a new pussy sign for every time I said pussy. That is earning your fucking money. I must have said it for like 8 straight minutes. Pussy, 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 pussy. They laughed, they laughed, they laughed. They were going downhill. I noticed they were going downhill because, again, I'm seasoned. And I stopped. I said goodnight. I thanked her. I said, that was a great job. And I hugged her. And she was starting to tear up a little bit. I think she was starting to get embarrassed. And when I saw that, I had some compassion for her. The only time I touched her is when she reached out to me. I reached out to her, and we hugged. And it was like Sinatra introducing Dean Martin to Jerry Lewis after 20 years on the marathon, the telethon. They fucking loved it. We hugged. I almost took her on the road with me. That's how good we were together. We were great together. Like Streisand and Redford. And then we left stage. Left stage. And the woman said, great, the woman who was the deaf chick said, good job. The sorority girl was appalled, of course. Shaking, like, oh, I don't know if you offended people to death, blah, blah, blah. And she was shaking as she was writing our check. I'm like, just, dude, honey, you just pulled off, you sold the place out, and you destroyed. That's the hardest they probably ever laughed in their geek lives. She wrote us the check, which John 2 hours later would lose taking a leak on Route 95, pissing. He lost the check. Nick got to wait 2 months for his money. That's the great ending. And we left. I remember actually smiling at the girl backstage after all that. We hugged. We took a picture together. It was like we were flirting. I could have fucked her, I think. She'd be riding me. I'd be like, what's the sign for put your finger in my ass? Honey? Is that mature enough for you? George Washington University. Fuck you. It's not Harvard, sweetie. Get over yourself. She's probably a folder of pants at the Gap. I hope she married rich. That's all I hope. I moved on to a very satisfying and, at the same time, very disappointing career.
Why'd you look at me?
And life. I'm looking at Dan.
Oh.
So we left. And everybody was cool. We got paid. That's exactly my hand to God, guys. I swear on my father's good, whatever. I don't give a shit about all that bullshit. I don't buy into it. So I'll swear on whatever you want. That's exactly what happened. Okay. That's 2003. Cut to today. Well, I'll throw this in for old time's sake. I did an interview on the Huffington Post live feed last week. It's in the Time Warner building, whatever. It's a big deal, and it's a big. That's a left-wing thing, right? Isn't it? Yeah. Ariana Huffington.
They're very liberal.
Right, very liberal. So, very liberal. We talked about George Carlin with his daughter, and he was a rebel and a big deal when Republican right-wings were uptight. So comedians make fun of people who can't take it. That's why back then they loved prodding the Republicans. Nixon, blah, blah, blah. It's done a 180, man. Now the left-wing liberals, they're the fucking uptight ones. But the Huffington Post, get a lot of hits. I plugged shit, so I went on. It was my second time on. I had a great experience both times. I don't know why I told that story, but I told the story I just told you. Shorter version, but that's what I told that story. An ender is too, because once I told people that story, Nick told me that Colin Quinn was a Caroline, same exact thing. I don't know why, or maybe it was a college, but there was a deaf interpreter on stage, and this is the smart version of what I just did, because Colin's brilliant. He told a joke that bombed, she signed it, he went over and gently tapped her on her head and said, "Is this thing on?" Unbelievable. That's Colin Quinn, and I'm the guy who says pussy. But I'm fine with my role in the business. I've accepted it. I've accepted that, and what will probably be a premature death. And the fact that I'm on a show where the theme song is my air conditioner. So, I tell it on Huffington Post. The reason I tell you that is, telling it on Huffington Post is my only explanation for why this article came out now. Okay, so I'm on Twitter today, plugging the show actually, and I notice a guy on my feed there goes, "Artie, these people are saying you hate deaf people." I'm like, that's weird. I thought it was a joke. So he sent me the article. I looked at it, and I'm like, it's one page, but it's on the front page of Deaf Digest, which I've
never heard of.
Midweek edition. Well, very funny. But I guess in the deaf community, it's probably a big deal. I don't know. Now here's the kicker. I have a second cousin, my cousin Cindy Manto, my sweetheart. She's a deaf interpreter, and if she sees this thing, she's gonna want to Artie, what God? What? That's not you. This is disappointing. Okay, so my only explanation is somebody there saw me tell that story and was offended by that story and then fabricated this story. But listen, in print, this is really bad. This makes me look like a heartless sociopath. Okay, here's the full article. An entertainer who is probably anti-deaf.
That's the title.
Who's anti-deaf? What the fuck is that?
That's the title.
That's the first line. Yeah. Artie Lang is an actor, a comedian, a radio personality, and an author. One time, okay, that's the big detail, not even the date. One time he was on the stage giving a performance. An interpreter stood next to him. Artie did not like someone sharing the stage with him. What? She's in my head! Wow. That's a statement. That's not even saying Artie didn't like somebody sharing. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's a leap.
A leap? They're lying about me. I mean, making me look worse than I already am. That's hard to fucking do. Okay, didn't like sharing the stage. And so, you can hear the liberal fucking bitch typing it. And so, asked the audience if any of them were deaf. After being told there were no deaf people around, okay. I did do that. That's the one truth. After that, I said, jokingly, you can leave. Why don't you leave? I said it twice. They laughed. She laughed. She made the sign. I turned around and went into my act. Didn't address her again till the pussy thing. Full disclosure. That's exactly what I did. Was it immature? Was it abuse, the pussy thing? I don't know. She seemed to be enjoying it. Everybody laughed, and backstage she was fine. We got paid. Okay, so that's the truth. Here's what it says after being told there were no deaf people. He physically pushed the interpreter off the stage. Now listen, I remember the stage. It was set up in a room like a gymnasium. It wasn't a theater. It was in like the gym at George Washington University. So it was a high stage. They like, tables that they made into a stage, like those banquet tables. So you're talking about about a 6-foot drop. It's not hopping down a step like at a club. I remember that. So it physically pushed the interpreter off the stage and told her she would not be paid for interpreting. She left the stage in tears. To this day, Artie still thinks this is funny.
Maybe
I'm going to tell you something right now. It's about me, and ultimately nobody got hurt, so it's not a big story. It's a long time ago. But this might be the biggest lie in the history of journalism. It's that wrong. She's assuming what I still think. She's assuming that I didn't like someone sharing the stage with me. And I never pushed her. I never came even close to pushing her. The thought never entered my mind, and I put this on Twitter. As a matter of fact, here's how much of a 180 this is. Not only did I not physically push this deaf interpreter, if I had seen somebody pushing her, I would have risked my life to stop the guy. That's how much it would have pissed me off. I would have stepped in, and that would look like the worst thing a human being could possibly do. And if he was bigger than me holding a gun, I would have tried to stop him. That's how anti-pushing a deaf interpreter I am, who's a woman off the stage. It just didn't happen. I always said if OJ was really innocent, for double murder, he's getting accused of it. If you're innocent, you go, shout from the mountaintops. I would shout from the mountaintops. I'm innocent. What are we doing? This is crazy. He wasn't doing that. It was weird. So I'm doing that. I'm shouting, this is nuts, if you're reading this. And again, I told you I got a cousin I'm very close with who's a deaf interpreter. She probably knows this publication. Deaf Digest Midweek Edition? Who the fuck knows? It's online, I guess. Deaf Digest, DEAF, and then capital DIGEST, all one word for the internet. Deaf Digest, Midweek Edition. Front fucking page. And then, my picture. Does Artie Lang hate the deaf? I mean, it's like someone trying to destroy me, but in a way where they're having a meeting and they go, well, clearly we can't do this. Like Hitler would go, we can't do this. This is unethical. Hitler would go, while Auschwitz was up on full steam, Hitler would look at this and go, well, Auschwitz is one thing. We can't sprint this. This is a lie. Winston Churchill and Roosevelt never pushed a deaf interpreter off a stage? Well, let's commit genocide, but we can't release this article. It's that wrong. I can't say it enough. And I wanted this on tape. So I tweeted at him. I said, guys, listen, I'm giving you a chance here. This is retarded. And if somebody out there, my fans are good at bringing me back to earth. If somebody thinks I'm a little bit wrong, I'm dying to hear your explanation. Unless it's handsy. Hey, pusher. Hey, never give you. You probably pusher. Fuck you. I don't care. You like me. Fuck you. Hey, I get paid. Because that's what the conversation would be. So Hansy's eliminated from this. If anybody thinks I'm wrong, fine. But I called my lawyer and I told him, I said, listen, you guys don't have a lot of time. I'm going to call my lawyer. This is upsetting me. I'm upsetting. Like I got to interview Kelly Carlin, George Carlin's daughter. I took that interview very seriously because of what Carlin meant to me. And if you listen to that, you just heard it. Clearly, it was an emotional thing to interview her. And I had to go through this right before I saw that. I almost I wasn't able to do it because I'm just out of my mind. I can't put a sentence together. I'm not upset about this. It makes me look horrible. And I don't need any help for that. So I said to them, you got to take that down. And not only take it down, you got to print a full retraction. It didn't happen, and no way it happened. We have no evidence. We apologize. Retraction and an apology. Just taking it down ain't going to work. I'm still going to pursue a lawsuit. So I said, maybe I'm wrong. You talk to a lawyer, maybe they go, you got no case here. I call my lawyer in Beverly Hills, my entertainment lawyer, Jared, who was the best person in my entertainment life.
He went to Jared.
The best rep. Called Jared. He put me on the phone with the litigation guy, I guess, the guy who handles shit like this as a public figure, and we sent him this article. Told him to look at Huffington Post and my tweets as well.
Maybe that was your apology.
I wish I was deaf.
So too late now. Click.
So I told the lawyer, you know, we sent them this article, the picture of me, the caption, look at my tweets because I reacted to it, and of course the Huffington Post Live thing. He looked at all those things. He said, call me ASAP. Call him up. He goes, listen, I'm going to draft the letter. This is terrible. And he said, is it? I said, it's untrue. I promise you. He could tell I wasn't lying. And he said, well, we'll get him to take it down. Typically with stuff like this, they take it down. I go, Nick is his name. I go, Nick, it's not enough. He goes, I understand that because it's that serious. It really looks bad. So I said, it's take it down with a retraction and an apology on the front page. Otherwise, we sue. And he goes, I'm fine with that. Didn't try to talk me out of it. So the lawyer knows we got something here if I'm telling the truth, and I am. Nick knows. John knows. They're friends of mine. Maybe they'll say they're biased. Anybody in that audience knows. The deaf interpreter knows if she's still around. This is weird. It's like a practical fucking joke. It's that odd. So I'll keep you posted, guys, with what I can if we get into legal issue. I just don't see how they wouldn't say, oh, wow, you act like this, and of course we have no evidence of this. It's weird. We'll take it down. Here's the apology. Here's the retraction. But I don't know. This is so bold. I don't think these people... It's very, very in your face. Fuck you. We're lying and we don't care because we hate you. That's what this tone is. Maybe my only thing is they're liberals, and again, they're uptight. Like Gino points it all the time out with his comedy. It's a different world now. Maybe they saw Huffington Post and said, oh, he's being flippant about making her say pussy and goofing on her, and that pissed them off, and they exaggerated into an outright lie. But if that's the case, they should not be an adult in business. That's not how you work. You're not vindictive. When you lie, that's what a third grader does.
Is it an actual publication or is it a website called
I think
Deaf
it's
Digest?
It's a website, but nowadays that's like a magazine.
No, without a doubt, it's more. It's more of a magazine than a magazine nowadays.
I doubt. Again, younger people and that's the people that could hurt me in my career if they get something going. You don't get 82-year-olds read the Times starting a fucking anti-parade. They don't give a shit. They can't
you know what's going to happen? You're going to end up suing them. Then they're going to end up going bankrupt. And they're going to be like, Artie hates deaf people so much he destroyed Deaf Digest magazine.
Well, no, listen. If they don't do what I want to do, this is so bad. This is so bad. I'll go this far as saying this is so bad. If they're capable of this, they're not good people. Even if they print a retraction, I think that anyway. I might pursue it anyway because it's out there. People have seen it. It's not down yet. It's been out a full half day. It's maybe I should do it anyway. A lot of damage could have been done.
You're not going to turn a blind eye to Deaf Digest?
I just, again, jokes like that just don't help me. They don't help at all. I just sweat a little bit more.
Sorry, buddy.
That just didn't help. George Carlin didn't get arrested for that joke, I swear to you. So, and again, I'm in a litigation, and Gino's making jokes. So this is it. I put this out to my fans here. This is really upsetting me. I would never, ever do this. And the fact that these people put this out here, this blatant, I think they're dangerous. And maybe I should pursue it anyway. I'll go around the table. Dan, no matter what they do, should I pursue it or drop it if they do what I want?
I think you should pursue it. It's out there already, and it's such a total lie, and so completely different, not even close to the story that you told. And
I mean, look, this is basically saying I committed assault.
Exactly.
Because the stage was very high. Don't you think, this is 2003, don't you think I would have heard about it back then? Minutes later? I was on the Stern Show. It was very high profile. Like, they would have sued me the second, arrested me. Whatever the fuck. They didn't because this didn't happen. That's why they didn't do it. It's 12 years ago. Do you know your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a lie. If there's no way what you said, if what you're saying is true, and I believe you, meal ticket. No, there's no way.
I promise you.
Yeah, there's no way they could have taken what you did according to your story and turned it into that, unless there's just some agenda, or they're just it's a 18-year-old out of college just trying to fill space and write a story.
You know what?
I heard isn't that a thing that goes on?
They're bad. Fuck you.
That happened with a New York Times reporter, right? He's like, yeah, I made up a lot of stuff. I didn't really research the things.
There's a whole movie about it. Kidding me?
Yeah. So there you go. That's probably what happened. I would definitely pursue it, dude. Who knows? Maybe make a little money for yourself, Artie.
I don't know. that was not my goal, but yeah, I'll take it. Fuck it.
No, it should be. I mean,
Listen, I'm old school, like mafia shit. Like, you know, that's what I got at the port. They tell your lawyer, because he's a scumbag, and you know, tell your lawyer he's getting paid the truth, so he knows how to handle this.
Yeah,
I'm like that.
And don't think that they're not trading on your name, Artie. It's funny that you know your name's like getting
It's
kicked
up
around.
there. It's the front page. My big fat face.
But it's getting kicked around with all the Stern stuff the past 2
Right,
weeks.
and
So,
I'm
oh my God! Oh, by the way, he hates deaf people.
I'm
Deaf
in
Thigh
that-
just breaking story.
I'm in that mix.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely be
So
like, fuck
I
you.
you know, I fucking anyway. Forgot what I was gonna say now. Anyway, it's disturbing.
You were gonna say you're glad you pushed that bitch. You were gonna say that, weren't you?
Now, my point is, the way I deal with defense lawyers with stuff is if you're guilty, it's full disclosure. So, in other words, and I told my lawyer exactly what I told you. Believe me, if it was different the other way, I would have told him that too. If he said, Art, did you push her off stage? No, I picked her up and threw her. So we got a problem. How are you going to approach this? I picked her up, covered her in gasoline, lit her on fire, and said, deaf people suck, as I threw her into the bullpen. And then I said, you know why you're not going to get paid? Because I'm lighting the person paying you on fire.
I can't wait till they play this clip on Deaf Digest magazine. Be like, here he is admitting it, and they just start from there.
That's what I would have told my lawyer, but I didn't tell my lawyer that. I said nothing happened, and a sociopath wrote this. It's a complete lie, because that's the truth. And my lawyer is on it. He works in Beverly Hills, guys, at Deaf Digest. Who can hear? If anybody can hear me at Deaf Digest, hear this. He works in Beverly Hills, and he's a partner, and his religion rhymes with shrewish.
He's a druid.
Run for the hills!
He's a druid?
Run for the hills! Ha ha ha! Guess who's the new CEO at Deaf Digest? What should we do, Mr. Lang? Nothing. I'm shutting this down. It's now a massage parlor. Deaf strippers. I'm gonna own this fucking joint. It's terrible. Anyway, I think they are capable of doing it again. It could be another comic.
What do you mean?
And look, I don't know. Maybe they hate comedians, or make deaf. I don't know. Maybe they don't like us.
Oh,
and if I could prevent Jay Moore from going through this, I'm going to do this. Everybody at LOL. I'd like to prevent every MC, including Gino, at LOL this week to go through this.
I'm the closer. Closing at LOL.
Yeah. All right, we go. All right, so that's it. So look for that, guys. I'll keep you posted. That really upset me. My life is fucking crazy. Following George Carlin on the Kilborn show. He's a good man. All right, we're going to talk to Tom Rickles in a little bit. Gino, again, 0-3, reeling from this.
I won last night.
So what'd you have last night?
Last night I had the Packers. And I actually tweeted...
Give me the line. Not everybody's a general. They played. Who they play? What's the line? Blah, blah, blah.
Packers were laying 6.5 to the Chiefs in Green Bay.
They're favored by 6.5.
And they just blew them. They were up at 31-7 at one point, but of course, the Chiefs had a chance to backdoor it.
Have the Packers played away yet?
Yeah, the Packers played away. They played away. They played
at the Bears, didn't
they?
Are
they
3-0? They opened in Chicago, and then they had 2 home games against Seattle and KC.
3-0 they are.
But Rodgers went nuts again.
Rodgers looks amazing. He did at home, especially last year. Okay, here's the thing. Last year they looked unreal, especially at home, but they lose to Seattle. Everybody's on that.
But they lost.
Rodgers, Packers bandwagon again. I like it. I liked them last year.
But they outplayed Seattle for about 55 minutes of that game.
That was a fucking weird game.
Rodgers had nothing to do with that loss. Nothing.
I'm talking about the Packers. Are they a winner? Rodgers has what, 1 ring?
Yes.
You know? He's got to get that second one.
The Steelers.
You got to get that second one.
Well, I told you, I predicted. Well, a lot of people did, but Green Bay makes sense to predict because I said this. If you remember when the Ravens and Niners went to the Super Bowl, They both came within one play the previous year.
Yeah.
Remember those muff punts against your Giants?
Right.
And the Ravens had the drop pass by Evans followed by the missed kick by Cundiff. So there's no reason not to believe Green Bay. Green Bay was in it. And then that ridiculous, I can't remember his name, guy like muffed wasn't even supposed to touch the onside kick, got in the way of sure-handed Jordy Nelson, and it ricocheted off his chest right to that Matthews kid.
Was the NFC Championship game in Green Bay or Seattle?
Seattle.
Yeah, that's the thing. I remember being doubtful because I was rooting for Green Bay. They got to get home field, especially when it's cold at Lambeau. Rodgers knows how to. He's like one of those old guys. He knows how to deal with it. Bart Starr, he's one of those guys. Yeah, they lost home field last year. That was big.
Yeah,
big.
But I don't think it. I think they'll have it, but I don't even think it'll matter. But I think they're definitely going to have it. Seattle stumbled out of the gates. I think they're going to win that. I don't know, because Arizona looks ridiculous.
Rodgers didn't get the ring last year. This year, a lot of people are thinking he's got Vegas at this point. Probably got them. They're the best odds.
I think they were the
Patriots started out the best odds.
Patriots had great odds. The Colts had great odds, and look at them.
That's interesting. Well, what happened? Did they win? They scored 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was the backdoor cover we
seconds.
talked about. Yeah, but then they did win. They did win. But what's
They
his name?
looked like shit early.
He's a turnover machine, Andrew Luck, right now.
He throws into heavy coverage, man. He's a confident guy. I think is he a winner though? That's the thing. I don't know that about him.
It doesn't hurt that you've played in such a weak division for all 3 of your seasons. This is your 4th. You've played in a division with who is it? I can't remember. The Texans and the Jaguars and I can't even think of the other and the Titans. I'm sorry.
And fuck the Flakegate. I'm all for Brady getting punished. Believe me, I'm a Giant fan, but they blew him out.
They've outscored their past 2 opponents, one of which is Rex Ryan's defense, 91 points.
They blew him out.
I said, imagine what they'd be doing if they were playing with a ball that was 0.3 PSI lower.
Well,
Suck it, Goodell.
When are people going to realize that Rex Ryan has got warning track power as a coach?
It's a great line.
You know what I mean?
It's a perfect way to put it.
That means, of course, in football terms, championship game. You went to 2. And when you take the Jets in this town to championship games, the Jet fans are so hungry for something. They adorned him, and he stayed probably because he got to that second AFC championship game another 3 years when he should have been fired. And he's up in Buffalo now. He's no big deal, man. I don't think he's not a champion to me.
They said the Patriots
as a head coach.
They said the Patriots exposed him. Because they just kept throwing and throwing and throwing. And
Pats are good.
He didn't have time to. Pats are great.
Listen, Pats, Packers. Of course, the networks are creaming over that. What do you think? Let's do the whole thing. It's so early for this, but
it's fun.
Super Bowl's next week. Pats, Packers. Give me the line.
If it's a Pats and Packers. Jesus Christ, I would say.
Well, that's probably the favorite right now.
I'd say it's a pick 'em. I honestly would. I know that's the cop out, but who do you? I couldn't defend. You're going to give it to Rodgers over Brady?
Where's the Super Bowl?
Arizona.
So
no,
outside?
Levi Stadium. You
Right.
told me that. San Fran.
Oh. So, it's not conditions don't have to be ideal like they would be in Miami with dead air. Could be some wind, and I'd give it
doesn't
the
matter.
advantage.
They're both
Rodgers.
cold wetter. I can't even. I'm machete.
Rodgers right now, at the risk of pissing off everybody in Boston, Rodgers right now is the better quarterback.
I don't know because there's something about Brady playing angry. They said it after the Spygate thing. They came back. That's when they won 18 before your team beat
got
them.
lucky, man.
And they're out to prove shit.
Brady, when Kirsch made that fucking catch, and they were at the fucking 2, they cut to Brady on the sidelines, and that look was not, we're about to lose this game. That look was 3 Super Bowls down.
Yeah, and 3 ridiculous catches.
Yeah.
Curse, Tyree, and Manningham.
Manning and the Giants beating them twice, and now that catch, and Seattle's going to beat them. All we got to do is hand it to Marshall. And so he was a spectator at that point, and he lucked the fuck out. So, you could say the Patriots could be fucking 0-6 in the bowl, and every one of them, according to a guy like John Ritchie, Raider, Eagle, clearly bitter when we talk to him. And I love John, but he goes, every ring they have is tainted. There's an asterisk next to every one of them. Well, technically, you got the Spygate, this gate, that gate, I don't know.
My question is, and I'd love Dan to, are the Colts real? Are they for real, or is he going to keep doing this? Are they going to just snap out of this and play better football, or is this a team that's going to underachieve? Because I'm telling you, Luck has not impressed me, even in his one win.
That's our CrossFit question for today.
You think
Gino in Washington Heights with 9 roommates.
First time, long time, Dan.
Waiting for Kevin Dombrowski to do his 5-minute set in the shower and get in. Gino is going to ask the CrossFit question.
Let him answer.
CrossFit question of the day for Gino to Dan Filato about Chicago. You can hear people clicking off the podcast.
Oh.
You can hear people not
we're
taking
trading
away their
players.
subscription.
It's a fire sale. How'd you like that pizza, by the way, from Lou Malnati's?
Delicious.
Gino asked Dan a Bears question. You can hear people canceling subscriptions.
I asked him a Colts question.
No, what'd you say? You
I said, do you
related to the Bears?
I did not relate it to the Bears. Who, by the way, did you see what they punted 10? The Bears punted on 10 of 10 possessions. And on one of them, this is why I think Fox is a genius. On one of them, they were down 20-0. They had the ball in Seattle territory. It was 4th and 1, and Fox punted. You know why I think he punted, Dan? I think you know why. Because if you don't punt, you might score and you might win. And he wants the first-round draft pick. He's like, look, I want the number 1 pick. I'm done. We're mailing it in. Then they trade Jared Allen.
And Bostic. They traded Bostic.
I didn't know that.
Let me ask you this, bottom line, Bear fan. At this point, do you try to figure out some drastic move to replace Cutler? No. Replace Cutler, get him the fuck out, and get a guy in there who's a winner.
You lose this.
You're not winning with him, man.
You tanked this year.
What are you locked into for? How many years did he got that contract for?
He's one of the top players in the NFL.
And they traded Jared Allen to Carolina, but they still paid, I read, $11 million for. They got a conditional
sixth-round pick.
Go Cubbies!
Which the way that they're playing, is going to be nothing.
Nothing, and that's why I think you agree. They're like, look, we're done this year. Let's just tank it and get the number 1 pick.
I think.
And I'm telling you, I admire that in a team. I admire a team like, look, this isn't our year.
Fucking
But
13
John
weeks.
Fox is 60-something.
13 weeks of that, though.
So
13
what?
weeks of
So
tank.
what? Would you?
They might not have.
Watch this. Let me ask you. Would you, both of you, would you rather have 13 weeks of tanking like they should do? And this is why I back it up. Or what the Jets are about to do and think Fitzpatrick, who looks so terrible, he'll never bring you back. The Jets are going to finish with 7 wins this year. I promise you. Do you want that? And then you get a whole nother year of shit?
Okay. Hold on. I want to write this down for Don Rickles. What did you say again?
Well, no, we do have to. Listen,
Jets are going to finish with 7 wins this year because they're going to keep trying.
You want to give a pick or a plug at all?
I'll be at SBR. Just follow my videos at SBR Sports Picks.
SBR
And by the way,
Sports
let the record show in my video. I tweeted last night, if you've been following me.
No.
And
the Cubs are on. I'm not going to look at Twitter. What are you crazy?
Every once in a while,
But
something passes by. I see the word Gino, then I see Daddy. That's all I fucking say.
Why am I talking? You guys are funnier. Look, my point is, I said, if I've had at least one win 148 out of 150 times, then you should load up on Green Bay because there's a 99% chance I'm going to cover. And I did. And of course, I wouldn't have said a word if I didn't, but I did. So that's why you should follow these picks. I've been doing them 8 years.
This show went from
you didn't hear a thing I said.
The offspring of George Carlin to Gino to Don Rickles. The middle in that equation, as far as comedy blood, is there's such a disproportionate. It's like Carlin, Gino Bisconti, Don Rickles.
No, it's Carlin, deaf woman, Gino Bisconti.
That you beat up.
And me, I'm in that somewhere. I mean, we got Carlin blood, and now Rickles is coming up. Hopefully we'll get to the phone, but that's very exciting. When we leave you here, the third segment of this special Tuesday broadcast, we'll have the great Don Rickles, who nicknamed me Baby Gorilla in the film Dirty Work. I love the guy, very affectionate. No, but so you won last night. What does that mean? That goes towards your 3 picks?
I'm 6-6 on the year now.
So what do you got coming up for this week? You're going to pick how many games?
Of course, I'm picking.
How many games you pick?
We pick 5 games now. I do a Thursday night 2-minute drill, and I'm leaning towards the Ravens. And then I do the 4 picks, 3 Sunday and 1. In the one Gino's picks video, I do 3 Sunday and 1 Monday night.
And mention again exactly how you get it.
Just follow me on Twitter, Gino Bisconti, or go to SBR Sports Picks. But just follow me, and it's all there. But I cannot thank SBR enough for letting me do this every day. I'm having a blast with it, and I have a game of the week on Mediander.com. But it's all on my website, and I can't thank you enough for letting me.
We stopped taping like 4 minutes ago.
4 minutes ago?
I'm sorry. Okay. No, listen. Gino's entertaining with that, and look, I would ultimately I'm busting his balls. A guy like Gino, I'd lay money down every week on the pick. I think ultimately you're going to win money, and that's the bottom line. You just bet every game, you'll win money. That's an easy formula. A lot of degenerates can't abide by that. I'm one of them. But thanks, Gino. I got Kelly Carlin, great book. We'll plug it again. Yeah, Carlin, a home companion, growing up with George. Great picture of her as a little girl on Carlin's lap when Carlin was Carlin, the long hair and the hippie beard, and thin and live and young. And great interview. Really, Kelly was very honest, and she let me, share some personal stuff that was important to me. She ignored Gino very well.
I didn't say anything.
And just a sweetheart. And she's got a happy ending in life, which seems very good. She's got a happy marriage. Again, she's not that old, and she's an orphan. Both parents are gone, so you think, okay, no siblings, could be lonely, but she doesn't seem that way. Great husband and career, one-woman show, so we'll keep in touch with her. Pick up that book, and thank you for that. And, of course, Gino and the great Don Rickles coming up after this. Thanks, Gene.
Igual que palomas mensajeras de luz, saber que mis besos se quedaron así.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Rickles.
That's me.
How are you, sir? It's Artie Lang.
Why? Why is it? Why are you bothering me, Artie? Jesus Christ.
Well, listen.
Of all guys, the one guy that didn't make it, I got to talk to.
I was wondering, Don Rickles here, of course. Are you nervous about this appearance?
You're kidding? I didn't sleep all night hoping you wouldn't call.
Okay, obviously you're doing someone a huge favor in your life. I appreciate it. Someone awkwardly approached you and asked you to do this, and you said yes. I appreciate it. Let me ask you this, truthfully, do you remember why we know each other?
From Dirty Works. Mine.
Well, yeah, you gave me a nickname that my entire...
Gorilla.
Baby Gorilla. Yeah, now, is that a highlight in your career?
If it is, I'll be living in a box someplace in downtown Hollywood.
Yeah, well, for me, it's probably a bigger deal. Do people come up to you all the time and say Dirty Work is the best thing you've done, the thing you...
Some people that come from Mars.
Now, Bob Saget directed Dirty Work. You work with him and Scorsese. Can you compare the two as directors?
Well, Bob Saget thinks I'm his father. He doesn't know what time it is. and De Niro's trying to make people hear him.
The difference between doing a scene with De Niro and Pesci as opposed to Norm and I, acting-wise?
One is for money and the other one's for a joke,
Well, you do steal that scene. My God, it was hilarious. But you haven't. How many movies did you do altogether?
Oh God, offhand, I don't know.
Kelly's Heroes was one, and you did Casino. But yeah. Were you that rumor? Was that true that you're making so much money in Vegas? Guys like you, it didn't make any sense to do a movie for 2 months, right?
Well, not really, Artie. To get down to it, the directors in those days were afraid. They said, "Oh, this guy makes fun of people. Well, he can't act." But
right.
I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I started out. I always wanted to be an actor, but I couldn't get lucky. And I cruised around Broadway a long time, auditioning and so forth. But the movies, I got lucky with a picture called Run Silent, Run Deep. But imagine my first movie ever. It was with Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster.
Wow.
Run Silent, Run Deep, and so that was kind of exciting, and that started me off to get a couple of shots in a picture called Rat Race with Debbie Reynolds, and that was exciting too. So I didn't have that big, larger movie career, but what I did, I thought was very well done. So
yeah, I remember seeing you do an interview about Run Silent, Run Deep about Clark Gable. You couldn't believe how he was just the same exact person, acting or not. He just
Yeah, right. I say to a lot of people today, who's Clark Gable, to some young people, they might not know, but he was the biggest in those days,
Yeah, Gone with the Wind and stuff. And yeah. So you're doing dates. It's unbelievable. I do stand up on the road, and you're out there quite a bit. I got this gig you're doing October 17th to the 18th in Orleans, Indiana. Oh.
Yeah, well, whenever, I just go where the wife says where the jewelry is, to pay for the jewelry. So,
you're Orleans, Las Vegas.
Yeah, right.
How often are you in Vegas? Is that where you do most of your
stuff?
Well,
I just signed a new deal. Thank God, it's unbelievable. I've been in Vegas 60 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
I started out in the lounge in the Sahara Hotel and went from there and if I worked one more hotel at that time, I would have worked the airport.
So what year is that about?
Oh, jeez, give me a break.
50s.
Ask somebody that knows. I got trouble trying to find out where my house is right now.
What are you thinking? Any part of you want to ever retire? Do you think you could see yourself not doing this?
Well, no, I think I think the good Lord's been kind to me. As long as I'm funny and people show up to see me, and I think it's good for the head that you're able to stand out there and make people come to see me. Fine, but I have no plans to walk away unless, God forbid, I get sick or I'm in the box down the street or something. But I have no plans of retiring right now.
You know, you think about the life you had, it's unbelievable. The people that you knew and stuff. I mean, you got a full life, you got your work and you got your family and stuff. But do you ever, like, once a day, once a week, ever think back to, times with, like, Sinatra, Dean Martin and those guys and get kind of melancholy about it?
Oh, sure, I do. Sure, I do. I miss Frank. He was a great friend to me and a good friend to have laughs with. And so... And those guys, and Johnny Carson was great with me, And, Bob Newhart, of course, was terrific. It still is. And, Don Adams. I mean, a lot of guys that I had great times with.
Yeah, well, you and Bob Newhart, I know you always traveled around the world. It was always fun to see.
We did.
You seem to have a good take. It's funny. I did Letterman's show a bunch of times. Actually, the first Letterman I ever did, I told the Baby Gorilla story with you, and I thank you for that because it killed.
Really?
It's a story about you, so it killed, and Letterman loved it. But, as a fan of those guys, Carson and Letterman, you seem to have a good take on that. Do you think Letterman and even Carson after you retired, I worry about them as someone who admires them. You seem to be a happy guy. You're a comic, sure, and we can have our dark moments, but you seem to have a full life and enjoy it. To me, Letterman and even Carson at the end, they didn't seem like happy guys, and it upsets me. Do you feel that?
Johnny was great when the light went on. He was the best.
Right.
He was very uncomfortable with a lot of people, and he didn't like crowds, and he was pretty much a loner, except for, thank God for dear friends. He was great with my wife and I, and he was terrific alone, but he didn't like a big crowd. And David was the same way. He would wear a baseball cap, and you would never know he was Letterman.
Right.
When the light went out, he was a loner also, but a wonderful man, and we had great times together.
Yeah, as a guy who's fond of them, I hope that they're happy. Sometimes you think you look at people.
Well, don't worry about it, Artie. You just said, well, worry how you look.
Well, that might be a little too late. What do you think? I mean, I don't know. This doesn't affect you because you're an icon. You do what you want. But the state of comedy now, with a lot of people overly sensitive. They call it politically correct. And
right.
Do you notice that? Do you think? Do you notice?
Oh, sure. I do things that. They say, oh, today he's going to do this, he's going to do it. I do what I've always done for 50 years or so, and, somebody tries to copy it, they can't do it because it's my personality.
Right.
What they do today, I mean, if the audience laughs, more power to them, but let's put it this way, it's not my cup of tea, but I just... go along with whatever the other guys are doing.
Yeah, they seem uptight. Like a couple of years ago, you had Obama over and you made a joke, and people are all up in arms. These young people don't know what you're about, out of context. And, every comic is like, my God, it's Don Rickles. He's being funny. Obama probably laughed. Were you surprised by that reaction?
Well, I wasn't surprised because that's what made my career. So I said, this is what I do, and I did it.
Yeah.
They always responded great. The president's inaugural, I don't know if you saw that on TV.
Yeah, unbelievable, yeah.
So, I do what I do, and I believed in it, and I never was mean-spirited, and I always laughed at what I said, and they accepted it, thank God.
As a comic, one of the coolest things I ever saw another comedian do, but you got to be so nerve-wracking. You at the Reagan event where you drop the mic and you're really busting his chops and he's barreled over laughing. At an event like that, even the most powerful guy in the world, even though you might know him a little bit, do you get nervous before that? Because you seem so relaxed.
Well, every performer, including yourself, sure. Yeah. Before you go on, you always get nervous. That energy and that nervousness is part of making up the drive and the fortitude you have on the stage. So sure, I get nervous like anything else, but to a degree, but it's a controlled nervousness, let's put it that way.
What about it, relationship-wise? You say Bob Newhart and stuff. The way I see you with people like Clint Eastwood and everything, the way you bust him and his mom and stuff, it seems like you have this incredible friendship with these guys.
Yeah, we see each other,
Yeah.
Clint's another guy that's pretty much a wonderful man, but he's pretty much a loner, he has his own life, but when we see each other, we enjoy it. We did that picture, Kelly's Heroes in Yugoslavia,
right,
for 6 months, and we had a great time with Carol O'Connor and Telly Savalas, who I miss tremendously. He was a beauty. He was wonderful. And we used to have a lot of laughs together.
Real quick, I'll let you go. I appreciate you coming, but looking back on everything you've done, you got the talk show appearances of, CPO Sharky, some stuff you did, of course, Dirty Work. Your stand-up career, work you did on the road. Is there any one part of your career that you look back at and you go, I'm the most proud of this? Like, if I could have one thing in a time capsule, one part of it, what would
Well, I say this, and all the other stuff I enjoy, the great stuff with Carson and so forth, and Jimmy Kimmel, which I'm going to be on, by the way, Wednesday night.
Great. Well, Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, great.
Yeah. But the one thing is the president's inaugural with Sinatra. That was one of the great highlights of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's stuff not many people get to do as well.
Right.
Listen. It was a great thrill for me to meet you and work with you. I don't know if you know this, but that was my first movie, Dirty Work, that I had a big part in, studio movie, and that's the first scene I had to shoot. And they tell me, you're going to be insulting me, and I said, well, I'm going to get fired because I'm never going to stop laughing. And I blew 20 takes, and they never got a take where Norm is not laughing. He's laughing in the movie. So, a great thrill for me, and the fact that you gave me a couple of minutes here means a lot to me, Don. You got October 17th to the 18th at Orleans in Las Vegas. Go see the great Don Rickles, Jimmy Kimmel live Wednesday night, and keep on keeping on, Don. I love you, and I wish you the best, okay?
Well, Artie, that's very sweet of you, and lots of luck to you and with your career, too.
I appreciate it. This meant a lot, buddy. Be well.
Okay.
Don Rickles.
Bye-bye, baby.
Bye-bye, man. Wow, it's like, that's. I know it doesn't seem like it in the world of where people work 14, 15-hour days loading trucks. Believe me, I used to do it. But in the world of showbiz, where he is in history and I am in my kitchen, that's what you call a big favor. What he just did. The man's 90, I believe. And I'm sure this plug is going to move a lot of tickets. In Vegas. Basically, he did this for no benefit on his end.
He did it for the love of you, Art.
No, listen, he really, that is the one thing. He did not do a lot of films. And what, I think he was being a little humble there in saying guys like him and the old guy, Shecky Green, those guys used to make $80,000 a week doing stand-up in Las Vegas in the 60s and 70s. When the mob ran it, there was a lot of money going around, probably cash. And they could offer movies, and they go, okay, it's 2 months in, like you said, Yugoslavia or something, 6 months there. And you're going to get $8,000 back then, $10,000 if you're him. Think of what you lose. 6 months in Yugoslavia, he was a big comic at that time. A headliner, worked with Sinatra, opened for Sinatra on the road. That's big money. Think of what he lost in stand-up to make Kelly's Heroes. And after that, he didn't do a lot of films because it's just a financial situation. He was the most sought-after comic in the world, and in movies, you got movie stars like Clark Gable taking all the cash. But I remember in Dirty Work, he was coming, and we had only one day with him, or it was something like I won't say exactly what it was. I overheard the number. It was a big amount of money per day. Basically, his agent's like, you want Don Rickles for the scene, and the scene that was written in there. He was the perfect guy. He was the Brando and Godfather for it. Curmudgeon enemy of ours, who's our boss at a movie theater, who is insulting to us. So he's the guy to get. So his agent was like, you want Don Rickles? Here it is. It's this amount of money, so-and-so dollars a day. If you go into a second day, I don't care if you need him for 30 seconds the next morning, you're paying the full thing. So we knew going into it, looking at the pay, like 4 or 5 pages, which is a lot for a movie. We knew it would be like a 19-hour day because they don't want to pay another day. But, that's not fair to Rickles because he's older at the time and they're making him work a 19-hour day. Kind of a shitty deal for him because he gets the same amount of money. But he was so fucking cool. So cool. And improvised. They wrote a couple of pages of insults, and then, he had a hard time doing it because it wasn't him insulting people. And after a while, we came to our senses and just said, Don, look, just say whatever you want. Look at Norm, look at Artie in these bow tie, stupid uniforms at a movie theater, and just insult them. And, so I didn't know what he was going to say. That's the Baby Gorilla story. I did not know what he was going to say. And on camera, he looks at me and goes, look at you, you baby gorilla. And I just burst into laughter. And Saget said, cut, you can't do that. And then Norm laughed. It was just, but the experience was unreal. So what you just heard is American history there. And the other line is Don fucking Rickles. The people he knew and worked with, probably the stories, the shit he saw, man.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Even from the early days of radio for me, I can't even explain to somebody now, like James Flippin,
right,
what I saw and happened. Can you imagine Las Vegas, late 50s, Sinatra?
Rat Pack days.
Oh, my God. It must have been amazing to be a guy.
Well,
in
to
that
be
group.
Sinatra.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You get the idea. Rickles is one of those showbiz guys. It's usually a comic who doesn't look exactly like a young Robert Redford. But he seems to be a loyal, monogamous guy with his wife. He got married kind of late, 38, but so maybe he had some fun. It seems like he did. He told some stories. But, that's true, Dan. I mean, the pussy Sinatra probably got in Vegas is Dean Martin. You probably can't count it. You need a money counter that goes too fast. And what happens is, and I've been with people like this before, they step on a pussy bomb, and you get hit with shrapnel. That happens sometimes when you're out of town making a movie. It's happened to me. I won't say the name. Cuba Gooding Jr. I'll give you a hypothetical. Maybe you're in Germany making a movie about a boat.
Jawohl.
With Horatio Sands on the Rhine River. And the lead of the movie is an African-American cute guy that a lot of the blondes in Germany are, enamored with. Movie star, cute guy, very charismatic.
Show me the Germans.
And and you're say hypothetically you're at the Grand Hyatt on the Rhine River, and after a long day of shooting, this hypothetical star invites you and Horatio and some of the guys out to a club that is up the Rhine River, about a 20-feet walk from the Hyatt. And you walk in the club, and it's every hot blonde German chick on ecstasy from 20 miles around. Say they recognize the guy because say he's in a movie where he plays a football player with Tom Cruise. I'm making shit up. And then they gather around him. They start, but eventually you can't get to him. There's too much pussy. He stepped on a pussy landmine. Now the shrapnel starts. Now they notice these girls that we were talking. Why are you? I'm like, well, I'm in the film too. Bingo. A retard could get laid at this point. A retard could get laid. Don't even have to speak English. And I did that night. Famous story. Well before I met Dana. Beautiful girl. God, blonde, really didn't speak any English. I was pointing to shit. Like, the next morning, I had to go to the set at like 7 a.m. I had to point to the doorknob to get her out of. Oh, here we walk back.
Rouse.
I walked back. I was loaded. I was very professional. 7 a.m. call. I took, ecstasy. Very professional. I got to the set. I looked like, my God.
You look like Cuba Gooding Sr.
I was the color of Johnny Depp in Edward Scissorhands. And everybody knows what's going on. You leave. You don't know if the star even executed anything because maybe he's just, he's there to work. Maybe he's not there to get laid. I'm a good guy. I'm not going to say who the star is because I don't know. Yeah, a hint. Okay, his first name is the same as a country we just lifted a huge embargo with. I mean, so that's a tough thing. That's tough. I mean, you really got to be in the know to figure that out. And we had fun. That's it. So Rickles was me. Back then, around those guys, him and Joey Bishop and shit. You're right. I mean, there had to be some drop off. But I get the feeling he's the kind of guy. Once he got married, he was all right. Family guy. And he had that act. You talk about what you could get away with back then. In the late 70s, early 80s, I remember if there was a black guy on the panel with him on Johnny Carson, because they always used to stay out there. The voices he used to... Lou Brock, the famous baseball player from the Cardinals, big star. There's a clip, you could probably find that on YouTube. Just type in Lou Brock, Don Rickles, Carson. He's sitting there, Brock was the first guest. He moves over and Rickles is sitting there. And every once in a while, out of nowhere, it made no sense. Rickles would look at Lou Brock and go, "Hey Lou, you want to play tennis?" Tennis doesn't even make any sense. In like the most stereotypical ghetto black voice, "Hey Lou, you want to play tennis?" I mean, shit that would get moans as if they were watching him light a relative on fire today. Lou Brock laughed at it, and Carson laughed at it. They all had cigarettes. That's when everybody was, what's the word I'm looking for? Cool! They were making adult jokes about race, and they were all fine with it, having a cigarette. Carson probably had Angie Dickinson waiting in his fucking bedroom. You know what they weren't doing? Going to the Kids' Choice Awards and getting slimed.
They weren't doing CrossFit.
CrossFit.
I looked up Jack Nicholson because I know that he got $20 million for the baseball movie out of Washington, and I couldn't remember the name.
I don't even know what it is. What are you talking about?
How Do You Know? It was the Jim Brooks about the baseball player.
When did that come out?
2010. It was horrible.
Are you kidding me?
But he got $20 million.
You tell me a James Brooks movie with Nicholson about baseball came out. I never heard of it.
Yeah.
Might be the biggest bomb of all time. I don't even know what's on.
It scares me because that's Jack Nicholson's last movie. Oh, please don't.
Why is he not able to make?
There's nothing on IMDb right now.
But why wouldn't he? But is he like Gene Hackman? Gene Hackman, I heard Alzheimer's, never see him again. Like he's like Reagan was for 10 years, which makes me sad, but it happens. But Nicholson's not like that. I mean, he's healthy enough to make a film, right?
Yeah,
it just doesn't want to.
Yeah, Owen Wilson, Reese Witherspoon, Paul Rudd, and Nicholson. And I know he got $20 million, and he was there for 2 weeks, and he said, "I don't care if I am not going 1 second over.
Right.
You got me for 2 weeks. That's it."
Well, that's it. You don't care anymore. Why? But look, the argument against Nicholson is, why even do it? Why put them through that hell? Just don't do it. Yeah, I think he's healthy. He just doesn't want to. Which the Hackman stuff, the physically not being able to do it. That's sad. What did that Intern movie do with De Niro and Anne Hathaway? Could you please look that up? I'm dying to know. Was that successful? I'm telling you right now, I love De Niro, and I love the fact that he doesn't give a shit about films like that. But holy living Christ. In those promos I've seen on the commercials, in the scenes where they're together, Hathaway and De Niro, Anne Hathaway's jumping around like a fucking, 21-year-old prom date, making all these faces, dancing around like the stupid modern music, all this energy, and De Niro is next to her. He doesn't look like he has a pulse. Like you want to put a mirror next to his mouth to see if he's breathing.
It made $17 million.
I don't know. I guess that's a disappointment.
That was the number 2. Hotel Transylvania 2 was number 1.
That's kidding.
Almost 50. Maze Runner, which had been out a week before, that was really close. That was $14 million.
Yeah, well, that's kids' movies, right?
Yeah.
You can't compare.
And then Everest, which is one about Mount Everest or some climbing thing.
That
was close, too. So it really...
$17 million, I bet, is disappointing for that. I think Hathaway, De Niro, like that funny premise, like maybe he's funny like he doesn't meet the parents type of thing. Insane promotion. All over the fucking place. She was all over the place. De Niro was all over the place doing interviews clearly he didn't want to do. But my point is, it's the guy from Raging Bull, Taxi Driver. The guy who used to gain 80 pounds to do a part, then lose it immediately, get tattoos where he didn't want to, shave his head into a mohawk. He's walking through it like he looks like he's got his hand out for the check. Physically saying, give me the check. And I can't blame him, but I don't know. I don't know, maybe he's going for that? Is he going for a low-energy guy? I see De Niro and Keith Richards on The Tonight Show with Fallon, and this is where Fallon earns his money. Jimmy is such a likable, charismatic, talented guy. They're icons, and they're not known for being energetic in interviews and talking a lot. And Jimmy, he does all the fucking work, and he somehow makes those interviews interesting without sort of offending those guys. It's a very sort of unique talent. The thing about Jimmy, he's always been comfortable, and being on SNL teaches you this, but he's always been comfortable, I feel, around huge stars that are older than him even, that he looked up to even. He's able to fit in with those guys. And confidence, and that's a big deal. But that's what he did with De Niro and Keith Richards. I saw them, I think, a week apart. And Keith, Jimmy asked her, what thing? You got the new album? And Keith was like, I was doing a book, and the book's second only to the Bible. Jimmy. You know what the fuck he's saying? And Fallon's laughing and keeping the energy going. They cut to the root sometimes, confused. And De Niro, man, he couldn't have done a pre-interview for that Fallon thing. Jesus. You could tell they all like Jimmy, like Keith Richards and De Niro. Hey, how you doing? But De Niro sits down and he just, Jimmy asked him something, what do you think of the band? And he's like, De Niro's like, man. But, look, you're entertained at some point because you're looking at Robert De Niro. It's not, fucking name a guy. Ryan Reynolds, It's Robert De Niro. And it's interesting. And then, it's short segments because that interest doesn't hold up a long time. But I don't know, that's a good point. Nicholson finally said enough's enough. Even De Niro, he's got to have, at some point do you go, I don't want to do The Intern.
I don't want to do Grudge Match.
Wait, but the checks, we're saying this, but the checks are probably insane and they get, back end money. What we don't realize is the overseas shit. It's a lot of money. I met with a business manager once when I started making, very good money, around 1999. I had a couple of deals, stand-up money, some movies, and I was on a sitcom for a couple of years, and my bank account was at a point where I never even thought it would be. And my manager said, "Look, we should have a business manager. Take care of your stuff." And I had heard about them. I knew Norman Spade had one. I had worked with them. I said, great. So I was living in L.A. at the time. My business manager takes me to meet this guy, real cocky guy, like a UCLA, USC frat type guy, but apparently knew what he was doing. Had big clients. We meet him at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, and he starts talking about clients he has, clients he used to have. And he gave me one story, not supposed to disclose this, but it's a story that the person probably wouldn't care about. And he said, I used to rep Brad Pitt, and I go, yeah, what kind of money does he have? He goes, well, I can't give you his net worth, but I'll give you an example of stuff you don't even know about, and I'm sure he wouldn't care about this. Brad Pitt, well, he took the offer. A jean company, a designer in Italy, gave Brad Pitt $30 million, $30 million. All he had to agree to, he had to sign a piece of paper allowing them to put his name, Brad Pitt, on the back of jeans. And the deal is, Brad Pitt never has to meet them, never has to shoot something, he never has to take a Polaroid, never has to leave or go there. He just has to allow them, you can put Brad Pitt on the back of the jeans, and we're allowed to sell them Brad Pitt jeans. The other thing, there's like an 18-mile radius in Italy where they're allowed to be sold. That's it. Can't market it outside Italy and because stuff like that you might look at as a joke and ruin your movie career. Only like in Naples. 30 mil. Now that Brad Pitt's an extraordinary star and sex symbol, all that shit, but that's for these guys. There's a big market over South Africa. Woody Allen, you think he's got integrity with ads over here. Doesn't do them over here because he's probably afraid it might affect his movies. You hear all these stories. He does a ton of shit. Italy, Sweden. Goes over there and makes a lot of money. Like Bill Murray's character in Lost in Translation. He's in Tokyo to meet Scarlett Johansson. At one point, he said, I'm here making $2 million for a Japanese whiskey company. You're there a week, It's that's how they do it. You also get a lifestyle that's insane. De Niro, the private jets and shit. Money just flies out the fucking window. Flies out the window. De Niro probably dated all these Naomi Campbell type black supermodels, taking on a private jet to Paris once a month for the weekend, and they do blow. And chicks like that have done blow since they're 12 to stay thin. They need pharmaceutical grade coke because nothing else gets them going. You think that's free?
He needs a security guard to keep Jay-Z out.
Yeah. It's very stressful doing coke with Naomi Campbell. I know it's very visible on her. A white chick, does the coke. You just have to give a quick nose thing. Giselle Bundchen, you can't even see it. Nicole Kidman,
if she did it.
No, if she ever did it. I'm saying if,
Use Zurich's an example.
Yeah, right. Yeah. In other words, the premise is Naomi Campbell, if she never did coke before, would sue us. So I don't know. I'm not real worried. But my point is, Nicole Kidman doing coke, if she did it, it's not a big cleanup. Naomi Campbell, it's very visible. You got to take a hose to it. You got to power wash her face, scrape it off, because otherwise, she looks like if Dr. Ben Carson grew a mustache, the white hair. That adds up. So you got to do the fucking intern. That's what you got to do. So yeah, the point, Rickles, back in those days, a lot of memories, and God, he seems to be fine. Doesn't think about it a lot, but he's probably forgotten this appearance already. But he used to do the inaugural with Frank Sinatra for the president, and he's talking to me for a few minutes. That's it. That's a good guy. Dirty Work, a scene with Don Rickles and Norm. That's the pinnacle. Met George Carlin. You heard that earlier. I'm a lucky guy, guys. Obviously, I'm a lucky guy who hates the deaf. We're going to get that going. I'm suing those motherfuckers. You deaf pricks. All right, this has been fun. Another epic show. Great interview with Kelly Carlin. She was amazing. Get her book. Man, I'm telling you, I read it. It didn't take long. I'm a fan, and I read all of Carlin's books, so I was into this. But, it's just a story about an interesting family. You don't even have to know them if you're young. You'll enjoy this. It's an interesting story about a family who goes from New York to L.A., and the father's a huge, iconic comic. And, in the 70s, 80s, there's coke, there's craziness. It's a great story. A Carlin Home Companion, Growing Up with George by Kelly Carlin. I cannot recommend this enough. Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Gino. I don't know where the fuck you're going to follow him on Twitter. Just Google Daddy. Google Daddy lives with open micers. / Washington Heights. Google Daddy / Aunt Olga's will. She's got shit in that will. I'm going to get him to divulge that. She's sitting on about $700,000.
No.
She's sitting on $700,000 and he knows it. And right now, here's my guess about Gino's life. Aunt Olga's got about $700,000, and there's another relative who's his competition. He probably bullshits her. Aunt Olga, I'm playing Madison Square Garden. I'm so proud of you. He's a little too nice to that woman. Maybe I'm the asshole. But thanks, Gino. 0-3 this week, so I'll get his picks. Now, he won last night. Thanks, Filato, and the great Don Rickles, of course. That was fun. The offspring of Carlin and the actual Don Rickles. Again, October 17th to the 18th, Don Rickles at the Orleans Casino in Las Vegas.
And he has an app, the Don Rickles app. Get his app.
Don Rickles app. What do you hit that and he calls you a hockey puck. You hit that and he gives the black voice you did to Lou Brock.
For $1 more, he calls you baby gorilla.
Let's hit the Don Rickles app. We'll see what he goes. Barack Obama stole my mop. Whoa! Very controversial. But no, I was about to say October 4th. We're doing this podcast for the Hoboken Comedy Festival. Come out, Bowtie Cinemas over here on 14th Street under the bridge. Afternoon, I think about 2 or 3 in the afternoon, we're doing the podcast with all the podcast characters in front of a live audience. We'll talk to you, come on the air, we'll have fun. So come check that out. It's going to be a fun time. And then at night, Chris Cotton, Gino Bisconti, and I will do a stand-up show from the same stage at 8. And that will close the festival, the finale. So come out, check out the podcast. It's a lot of fun. And the subscription drive contest is heating up. One guy already has 200 people, he showed me. So, you can do this. Hit those sites, Reddit, Facebook. If you got a strong presence there, that's the way to do it in this modern time. That's what he did. I think he did Reddit or something, which is a hint. Reddit seems to be a nice place for our fans. You can cultivate that. One guy, without trying, 1,000 people reacted. So people seem to like the show. We're digging it. And that's it. Been another fun day. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, how do we explain this tomorrow? If you've seen the documentary, The 7-5, we talked about it. The documentary, The 7-5, is on, I'm sure Netflix, but it's on iTunes right now, if you have Apple TV. Everybody can get it if you're young and technical. It's an amazing documentary. It came out about 6 months ago. It's about the 75th precinct. That's what the 7-5 means. The 75th precinct in East New York, which is a part of Brooklyn. It's called East New York because it's just east of Manhattan. In Brooklyn, in the 80s, mid-80s, during the epicenter, the height of the crack epidemic. And, Hispanic, black community, overrun by crack heads with guns, crack dealers with guns, and insane shit. Colombian coke from Escobar coming into town, and these drug warlords run the entire neighborhood. Some cops are good, but a couple of them just say, fuck it. $300 a week to be a cop, I can make $24,000 every month working for these guys who are coke dealers for Escobar. And it's about these two guys who are partners. They get way deep in it. One is a guy named Kenny Urell, who will be here in person tomorrow. Another guy who is the ringleader is a guy named Mike Dowd, who's known as the dirtiest cop in the history of New York City. Just Google Mike Dowd and Ken Urell. It's fascinating shit. They were like blood brothers, partners in crime, protecting and selling shit and blow for these major Colombian, South American, Central American coke dealers in East New York, which was so fucked up, Kenny Urell calls it the land of fuck. Just a dead place. And one thing leads to another. Kenny, at the end, gives up Dowd to the authorities because he's in too deep. He saves his family instead of goes to jail. Gives up Dowd. Dowd does 12 and a half years. Comes out about, 10 years ago and has been kicking around, staying out of trouble, trying to make ends meet. Has not spoke to Urell. Looks at him as a rat. Really mad at him. They have not spoke to each other. There's a lot of tension. We interviewed Dowd a couple of weeks ago. Urell contacted me. He wants to come on. I asked Dowd if he wants to be on the phone. So basically, these two guys haven't talked since the day they got arrested. They didn't see each other for the movie because they did separate interviews. This is the first time they're interacting since they got arrested in 1993, and it's going to be nuts. It's going to be fireworks. If you know the 7-5, and even if you don't, it's going to be crazy. If you know that movie, you're going to be enthralled. Try to see it before, but if not, definitely after. But that's the best way to set it up. And I'm kind of nervous a little bit. Thank God we let Mike be on the phone because we would have needed security. So it's going to be a crazy show tomorrow. Tune in. And thanks to all the new people and the nice things you guys are saying on Twitter. It's touching. Danny and I have been working on this a long time, and it's finally worth it. We're proud to be your servants. Take care. Brush your hair. See you tomorrow.
Hey guys, this is James Flippin of RadioMisfits.com and also one of the behind-the-scenes guys for the Artie Quitter podcast. Right now, you're listening to the free weekly edition of the Artie Quitter